There's something lurking beneath the surface of America's waters, something ancient, elusive, and utterly bizarre. From the fog-drenched coastlines of the Pacific Northwest to the murky depths of the Great Lakes, whispers of sea monsters have haunted sailors, fishermen, and locals for centuries. These aren't just tall tales or misidentified logs. These are stories steeped in mystery, backed by eyewitness accounts, and shrouded in enough eerie detail to send chills down your spine. Imagine standing on the shore at twilight, the water lapping at your feet, when suddenly, a ripple, a shadow, something massive moving just beneath the waves. What if you weren't alone out there? Today, we're diving deep into 33 of the strangest American sea monster stories ever recorded. These aren't your everyday fish tales. These are encounters that defy explanation, creatures that blur the line between myth and reality. Think of the Loch Ness Monster, but with an American twist. From the serpentine beast of Lake Champlain to the demonic-looking Dover demon of Massachusetts, these legends have captivated and terrified generations. Some have even been caught on camera, leaving scientists scratching their heads and skeptics questioning everything they thought they knew. What makes these stories so compelling isn't just the monsters themselves, it's the way they tap into our primal fear of the unknown. The ocean covers over 70% of our planet, yet we've explored less than 5% of it. What else is down there, hiding in the abyss? Whether you're a die-hard cryptid enthusiast or just love a good mystery, these tales will make you look at the water a little differently. So grab your life jacket and steady your nerves, because by the time we're done, you might just believe in monsters. The waters off Gloucester, Massachusetts, were calm on that August day in 1817 until they weren't. Fishermen going about their routines suddenly froze as an impossible shape broke the surface, stretching nearly 80 feet long, with a body thicker than a barrel and eyes that glowed like embers. The creature moved with eerie purpose. It wasn't just one witness, dozens swore they saw it, their accounts matching in terrifying detail. One sailor described the way it arched its back, revealing humps like a string of buoys, while another shuddered at the sound it made, a hiss that carried over the water like steam escaping a kettle. This wasn't some foggy rumor or drunken tall tale. The Gloucester Sea Serpent became one of the first cryptid sightings in America to be taken seriously, even by scientists. A local naturalist named Linnaeus Shaw interviewed witnesses, documenting their stories with the precision of a courtroom transcript. Newspapers as far as Boston picked up the story, sparking debates that sound eerily modern. Was this a remnant of the prehistoric past, a misidentified whale, or something far stranger? What makes this case so compelling isn't just the consistency of the account, it's the way it forced people to question what they thought they knew. These were hardened fishermen, men who knew every ripple and shadow of those waters. Yet here they were, insisting they'd seen something that defied logic. The Gloucester Serpent didn't just vanish after that summer either. Sightings continued for decades, weaving it into the fabric of New England folklore. Some say it still lurks in those depths, a living relic of a time when the ocean's mysteries were vast and uncharted. And here's the chilling thought: if something that massive could evade capture or clear explanation for over 2 centuries, what else might be hiding beneath the waves? Moving south from the chilly waters of New England, we encounter another serpentine legend, one that slithered its way into the heart of Maryland folklore for nearly a century. Known as Chessie, this mysterious creature has been prowling the depths of the Chesapeake Bay since at least the 1930s, earning its nickname as America's answer to the Loch Ness Monster. Witnesses describe a massive, snake-like beast, sometimes stretching over 30 feet long, with smooth, dark skin and a body that moves in eerie undulations just beneath the water's surface. One of the most striking things about Chessie is how often it's been spotted, not just by lone fishermen spinning yarns, but by groups of people, even law enforcement. In 1982, a family enjoying a summer afternoon on the bay watched in stunned silence as something huge and serpentine glided past their boat, leaving a wake that defied any known marine animal. That same year, two marine biologists conducting a survey reported seeing what they initially mistook for a fallen tree until it began moving against the current, vanishing into the murk with unsettling speed. Then there's the infamous 1934 account from a steamship crew who claimed the creature surfaced so close to their vessel that they could see the texture of its scales before it disappeared beneath the waves. Unlike some cryptids that fade into legend after a few blurry photos, Chessie refuses to be dismissed. In 1985, a vacationer captured what remains one of the clearest pieces of evidence, a grainy but unmistakable video showing a long, humped shape slicing through the water near Kent Island. Experts analyzed the footage, ruling out known animals like manatees or sturgeon. Even the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration once weighed in, acknowledging that the Chesapeake's deep channels and brackish waters could theoretically hide an unknown species. Local legends add another layer to the mystery. Some indigenous tribes along the bay speak of a horned serpent that predates colonial sightings, a guardian spirit said to warn of coming storms. Watermen swap stories about sudden, unexplained drops in crab pot lines, as if something massive passed beneath them. And then there are the modern-day encounters like the kayaker in 2016, who swears something bumped his boat with enough force to nearly capsize it, leaving no trace but a spreading ripple in the otherwise calm water. What makes Chessie so fascinating isn't just the consistency of the descriptions. It's the way the creature seems woven into the very identity of the Chesapeake. Unlike Nessie, which feels like a distant tourist attraction, Chessie belongs to the people who live on these waters. It's not just a monster, it's a neighbor, a shadow in the reeds, a story passed down through generations. And as long as the bay keeps its secrets, the legend of Chessie will keep rising to the surface. Lake Champlain holds a secret beneath its tranquil waters, a legend as old as the hills surrounding it. Vermont's own version of the Loch Ness Monster, affectionately dubbed Champ, has been stirring up waves for centuries, with sightings dating back to the region's earliest indigenous inhabitants. The Abenaki and Iroquois tribes spoke of a massive, serpent-like creature they called Tatascock, a being woven into their stories long before European settlers ever laid eyes on the lake. These weren't just campfire tales, they were warnings passed down through generations about a spirit that guarded the depths. Fast forward to the summer of 1977, when Sandra Mancy and her family were enjoying a picnic by the lake. What started as an ordinary day turned into one of the most compelling pieces of cryptid evidence ever captured. Sandra snapped a photograph of something extraordinary, a dark, elongated shape rising from the water, its neck arched like a swan's but on a scale that defied logic. The photo, later analyzed by experts, showed no signs of tampering, and the ripples around the object suggested it wasn't just debris or a floating log. It was alive, moving, and massive, but Champ's legend doesn't rest on a single photo. Sonar readings over the years have picked up unexplainable anomalies in the lake's deepest trenches, signatures too large to be fish, too fast to be sturgeon. In 2003, a team from the Fauna Communications Research Institute recorded eerie vocalizations beneath the surface, sounds unlike any known aquatic animal. Described as low-frequency pulses mixed with metallic clicks, these noises sparked theories that Champ could possess some form of advanced echolocation, a trait seen in prehistoric marine reptiles. Recent expeditions have only deepened the mystery. High-tech underwater drones and side-scan sonar have mapped the lake's floor, revealing underwater caves and passages that could easily conceal a large, elusive creature. Some researchers speculate Champ might be a surviving plesios or a relic from the age of dinosaurs, while others argue it could be an undiscovered species of giant eel or sturgeon. Then there are the locals' fishermen who swear their nets have been tugged by something far stronger than a muskie, kayakers who have felt the water tremble beneath them as if something vast had just passed by. What makes Champ so enduring isn't just the sightings or the science, it's the way the creature has become part of Lake Champlain's identity. Towns along the shore lean into the legend with statues, festivals, and even a minor league baseball team named in its honor. But beneath the charm lies a deeper question. If Champ is real, how has it evaded capture or clear documentation for so long? Maybe the lake, with its cold, dark depths and labyrinthine trenches, is the perfect hideout for a creature that thrives on mystery. Or maybe, just maybe, Champ isn't just an animal, it's something older, stranger, and far more elusive than we're prepared to understand. One thing's certain, every ripple on Lake Champlain's surface carries the whisper of a possibility. And that's enough to keep the legend and the search very much alive. Deep in the winding currents of Georgia's Altamaha River, something ancient stirs, a creature so ingrained in local lore that it's earned its own name, altamaha-ha. This serpentine beast, described as a sturgeon on steroids with a snout like a sword and a body as thick as an oil drum, has haunted these waters for centuries. The Creek Indians told stories of a river guardian, a spirit that could calm the waters or whip them into a frenzy with a flick of its tail. But this wasn't just myth to them, it was a warning passed down through generations, a reminder that some parts of the river were best left undisturbed. Fast forward to the early 1980s, when a group of lumberjacks working near the river's edge swore they saw something that defied logic. One of them, a seasoned outdoorsman named Jeff Warren, described it like this: "It wasn't no gator, and it sure as hell wasn't a log. This thing had ridges down its back like an armored dinosaur, and it moved through the water like a train, smooth, fast, and totally silent." Other workers backed his story, their accounts detailing a creature at least 20 feet long with a snout that broke the surface first, followed by a series of humps that vanished beneath the murky water. What makes altamaha-ha, or alti, as locals affectionately call it, so unique isn't just its appearance. It's the way the legend has persisted across cultures and centuries. Spanish explorers in the 1500s wrote of a great fish with the snout of a sword that terrified their crews. In the 1920s, a steamboat captain reported a near collision with something massive that left his passengers screaming. Even modern fishermen tell stories of nets being torn apart by something far stronger than a catfish, or of kayaks tipping for no apparent reason in otherwise calm waters. The name itself holds mystery. Ha isn't just a random addition. It's said to mimic the sound the creature makes when it surfaces, a low, guttural exhale that echoes across the river. Some believe it's a remnant of the age of dinosaurs, a freshwater plesiosaur, or that somehow survived extinction. Others think it could be an undiscovered species of giant sturgeon, a fish grown to monstrous proportions in the Altamaha's isolated depths. But here's the twist: the Altamaha River is a labyrinth of swamps, oxbows, and tidal marshes, a place where GPS signals falter and the water shifts from coffee black to tea brown in a matter of miles. If there's anywhere a creature could hide, it's here. Scientists have barely scratched the surface of this ecosystem, and new species like the Altamaha spinner mussel, discovered in 2010, are still being found. So why not a river monster? The most chilling part, alti doesn't just stay in the river. There are reports of it venturing into the interconnected creeks and even the nearby swamps, as if it's exploring, testing its boundaries. In 2017, a drone photographer captured something unsettling: a long, dark shape gliding just below the surface of a tributary, too smooth to be a log, too deliberate to be debris. The video went viral, reigniting debates about what exactly calls the Altamaha home. Whether altamaha-ha is a misidentified sturgeon, a relic of prehistory, or something altogether stranger, one thing's certain: the people who live along this river don't just believe in it, they respect it. They'll tell you with straight faces that some stretches of water are Alta's territory, and they'll steer clear after dark, because in the end, the mystery is part of the river's magic. And as long as the altamaha keeps its secrets, Alta will keep swimming through the shadows just out of reach. Lake Erie might be the shallowest of the Great Lakes, but its depths hold one of the most persistent sea monster legends in North America. Meet Bessie, or as locals call her, South Bay Bessie, a 30-foot serpent that's been slithering through eyewitness accounts since 1817. The first recorded sighting came from a ship's crew near Sandusky, Ohio, who described a creature thick as a man's body, undulating through the waves with eerie, sinuous movements. But what makes Bessie stand out isn't just her longevity. It's the sheer volume of credible witnesses who have encountered her over 2 centuries, including police officers, marine biologists, and even a group of Boy Scouts who swore they saw her breach the surface during a camping trip in 1993. The 1990s were a golden age for Bessie sightings, with reports peaking during the summer of 1990. A commercial fisherman named Randy Braun was pulling nets near Cleveland when something massive tangled his lines. Not with the thrashing struggle of a fish, but with the slow, deliberate power of something far larger. He glimpsed a dark, coiled shape just below the surface before it vanished, leaving his nets shredded. That same summer, a family on a sunset cruise captured shaky but compelling video footage of a humped creature moving against the current, its spine breaking the water in rhythmic arches. The footage, analyzed by marine experts, was deemed unclassifiable, ruling out known species like sturgeon or schools of fish. One of the most chilling encounters came from a pair of divers exploring a shipwreck near Kelly's Island in 1996. They reported feeling an unnatural current, followed by the distant but unmistakable sound of something massive displacing water. One diver turned just in time to see a shadow, long, serpentine, and far larger than any lake creature should be, slip into the gloom. They aborted the dive immediately, later telling reporters the experience felt predatory, like we were being watched. Theories about Bessie's identity range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some researchers suggest she could be a surviving zooglodon, a prehistoric whale thought extinct for millions of years. Others point to the lake's history as a glacial meltwater channel, speculating that isolated pockets of deep, cold water might harbor relics from another age. Then there's the more unsettling idea that Bessie isn't a single creature but a population. Lake Erie's western basin is a hotspot for sightings, with its maze of underwater trenches and limestone caves providing the perfect hideout for something that doesn't want to be found. Local indigenous tribes have their own explanations. The Erie people who once thrived along these shores spoke of Mishebeshu, a water panther with serpentine traits that guarded sacred sites. Some elders believe Bessie is a modern echo of this spirit, a reminder that the lake demands respect. Whether supernatural or biological, the legend persists because Lake Erie itself is a paradox, shallow enough to warm quickly in summer, yet hiding depths that plunge to over 200 feet, with visibility so poor that even modern sonar struggles to map its secrets. The most intriguing clue might lie in the lake's ecology. In recent years, biologists have documented eerie phenomena like dead zones, areas where oxygen levels plummet, creating pockets where most life can't survive. Yet somehow, invasive species like the monstrous lake sturgeon thrive there. Could Bessie be a relic species adapted to these harsh conditions, or is she something else entirely? A living fossil that's learned to vanish into Erie's murky green waters whenever humans get too close. Whatever the truth, Bessie's legacy is woven into the fabric of the Great Lakes. From tavern murals to local sports team mascots, she's become more than a myth. She's a symbol of the mysteries that still ripple beneath the surface of our modern world. And every summer, when the lake turns glassy at dusk, someone, somewhere, is bound to ask, what if this is the night she shows herself again? the White River in Arkansas might seem like any other sleepy southern waterway until you hear the stories. In 1915, something monstrous surfaced near the town of Newport, turning the tranquil river into ground zero for one of America's most peculiar cryptid legends. Witnesses described a creature unlike anything in the natural world, a hulking, gray beast the size of a small car with a shell like a turtle and strange, spike-like protrusions along its back. One farmer, Bramlett Bateman, swore he saw it lumbering onto a sandbar, its weight leaving deep, clawed prints in the mud before it slipped back into the water with a sound like a steam engine hissing. What followed wasn't just a handful of isolated accounts, it was a full-blown spectacle. Newspapers dubbed it the White River Monster, and by the 1930s, the legend had grown so pervasive that the local Chamber of Commerce, sensing opportunity, leaned into the hype. They even posted a cash reward for its capture, dead or alive, but the monster had other plans. Sightings continued sporadically for decades, each one adding fuel to the myth. In 1971, a group of fishermen reported seeing the creature's spiked back break the surface near the Tunica River tributary, moving against the current with unnatural purpose. One of them, a Vietnam veteran named Cloyce Warren, insisted that wasn't no snapping turtle, nothing that big belongs in that river. The 1970s kicked the frenzy into overdrive. A local TV station aired a grainy, dramatic reenactment of the monster's alleged appearance, and suddenly the White River Monster was a celebrity. Tourists flocked to Newport hoping for a glimpse. The town embraced the legend with a mix of pride and playful skepticism, launching an annual White River Monster Day festival complete with boat tours, carnival games, and a mascot, a lovable, spike-backed creature that bore little resemblance to the eerie descriptions from eyewitnesses. But beneath the kitsch, there's a kernel of something stranger. The monster's physical descriptions, particularly those spiked protrusions, don't neatly match any known animal. Some researchers speculate it could be an abnormally large alligator snapping turtle, a prehistoric-looking species capable of growing over 200 pounds. Others point to the river's history of seismic activity, suggesting gas bubbles or shifting sediment might explain the eerie, hissing sounds. Then there's the wildcard theory that the creature is a surviving archelon, a giant Cretaceous-era turtle thought extinct for 65 million years. The most compelling detail, though, isn't the monster itself. It's the way the river seems to hide its secrets. The White River is a labyrinth of submerged logs, deep holes, and tangled vegetation, a place where even sonar struggles to penetrate. In 2005, a team of divers exploring a particularly murky stretch reported an unsettling encounter. Their lights reflected off something smooth and curved like a shell before the current kicked up sediment, obscuring whatever it was. They never got a second look. Today, the White River Monster exists in a curious space between folklore and potential reality. Scientists dismiss it as a case of mistaken identity, but locals, especially those who have spent lifetimes on the water, aren't so quick to write it off. They'll tell you about the unnatural wakes that appear on windless days, or the way fish sometimes vanish from a spot without a ripple, as if something below had simply opened its mouth. Whether it's a misidentified turtle, a surviving relic, or pure myth, one thing's certain: the White River keeps its secrets close, and maybe, just maybe, that's the way the monster likes it. Now, shift your gaze from Arkansas to the Pacific Northwest, where another watery enigma waits one with teeth, but that's a story for another time. Lake Manitoba stretches across the Canadian prairies like a vast, shimmering mirror, but beneath its serene surface something stirs. Known as Manipogo, this enigmatic creature has been slipping in and out of sight for generations, leaving behind a trail of baffled witnesses and blurry photographs. Descriptions paint a picture of a serpentine beast with humps like camelback ridges, moving through the water with an eerie, undulating grace, though technically outside view. Borders, Manipogo's legend is deeply intertwined with American lake monster lore, particularly sightings from nearby Minnesota and the Dakotas, where similar creatures have been reported for over a century. The most tantalizing piece of evidence comes from the summer of 1962, when two fishermen, Richard Vincent and John Cohnfell, captured something extraordinary on film. Their footage, though grainy, showed a long, dark shape gliding just below the lake's surface, its humps breaking the water in a rhythmic sequence. Experts who examined the film noted the object's movement was inconsistent with waves or debris. It appeared to be alive, propelling itself with deliberate motion. Skeptics dismissed it as a misidentified sturgeon or a floating log, but the witnesses stood firm. Vincent, a seasoned outdoorsman, insisted, "Logs don't swim against the current. And they sure as hell don't have humps." Indigenous oral histories add layers of depth to the Manipogo legend. The Cree and Anishinaabe peoples have shared stories of Omnibuji, a water spirit with serpentine features, for centuries. These tales weren't mere campfire stories. They carried weight, often serving as cautionary lessons about respecting the lake's hidden dangers. Elders spoke of the creature as a guardian, a being that could bless or curse those who ventured too far into its domain. Some accounts even described it as a shapeshifter, capable of altering its form to blend into the water or mimic other animals, a detail that might explain why modern sightings vary so wildly in description. What makes Manipogo especially fascinating is its connection to other humped lake monsters across North America. From Champ in Lake Champlain to Bessie in Lake Erie, these creatures share uncanny similarities: elongated bodies, dorsal ridges, and a preference for deep, cold waters. Some researchers speculate they could be remnants of a prehistoric species, like zooglodons or plesiosaurs, that found refuge in glacial lakes after the last ice age. Others propose a more mundane explanation: giant sturgeon or misidentified schools of fish. But that doesn't account for the sheer consistency of eyewitness reports across decades and cultures. Modern technology hasn't solved the mystery. In 2014, a team of researchers deployed underwater drones equipped with sonar to scan the lake's deepest trenches. They detected several large, unidentifiable shapes moving independently of the current, but the murky water and technical limitations left more questions than answers. One biologist on the team remarked, "There's something down there we can't classify. Whether it's a known species exhibiting unusual behavior or something entirely new, we just don't know." Local attitudes toward Manipogo range from playful pride to genuine belief. The town of St. Laurent even erected a whimsical statue of the creature near the lakeshore, drawing tourists eager for a photo op. Yet for fishermen and boaters who have encountered something unexplained on the water, the legend feels far more tangible. They'll tell you about the way the lake sometimes goes unnaturally still, as if holding its breath, or the way their nets occasionally snag on something massive before the line goes slack. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Manipogo isn't whether it exists, but what it represents: the enduring human fascination with the unknown. In an age where satellites map every inch of the planet, Lake Manitoba remains a pocket of mystery, its depths resisting full exploration. Whether a biological oddity, a cultural touchstone, or something beyond our understanding, Manipogo continues to ripple through the collective imagination, a reminder that some secrets are still waiting beneath the surface. Ogopogo might be Canada's most famous lake monster, but its legend doesn't stop at the border. Just south in Washington state, the deep, glacial waters of Lake Chelan hide what many believe could be the same creature, or at least a close relative. Descriptions from witnesses on both sides of the 49th parallel are eerily similar. A serpentine body stretching 30 to 40 feet long, a head shaped like a horse or camel, and a way of moving through the water that defies anything known to science. The first documented sighting in Lake Chelan dates back to 1892, when a steamboat captain named Thomas Drumheller swore he saw something massive shadowing his vessel. He described it as a living telegraph pole, its dark form keeping pace with the boat before vanishing into the depths. That account set the tone for over a century of encounters. In 1946, a group of picnickers near Manson Bay watched in stunned silence as a humped creature surfaced, its long neck arching like a swan's, but on a scale that left no doubt this was no ordinary animal. One witness, a schoolteacher named Margaret Clint, later wrote, "It moved with purpose, like it knew we were there. That's what chilled me most. What ties these sightings to Ogopogo isn't just the physical descriptions, it's the behavior." Witnesses in both locations report the creature swimming in a distinct, undulating motion, with multiple humps breaking the surface in sequence. In Lake Chelan, fishermen have told of their boats rocking violently, as if something enormous passed beneath them, while others describe a strange, almost musical vibration in the water moments before the creature appears. These details mirror reports from Okanagan Lake, where Ogopogo has been blamed for capsizing small vessels and leaving behind unnaturally large wakes on windless days. The geology of these lakes adds another layer of intrigue. Both Chelan and Okanagan were carved by glaciers, leaving behind deep, cold trenches with limited visibility, perfect hiding spots for something that wants to stay hidden. Lake Chelan's depths plunge to over 1,400 feet, with underwater caves that remain unexplored. In 2011, a team from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration conducted sonar scans and detected an anomaly near the lake's bottom, a massive, slow-moving object that vanished before they could get a clear reading. The lead researcher noted, "It wasn't a school of fish, the signature was all wrong. It behaved more like a single, large organism." Local indigenous stories bridge the gap between these lakes long before modern sightings. The Sioux people of the Okanagan Valley speak of Enha'ayik, a shape-shifting water spirit that demanded offerings from travelers crossing the lake. Similarly, the Chelan tribe's oral histories tell of a guardian serpent that dwelled in the lake's deepest reaches, emerging only to test or punish those who disrespected the water. These aren't just myths, they're cultural cornerstones, suggesting a shared tradition of something unexplained in these waters. Could Ogopogo and the Lake Chelan monster be the same species? Some cryptozoologists point to the sturgeon theory, suggesting these creatures could be oversized remnants of a prehistoric fish population. Others propose a more radical idea, that these lakes are connected by subterranean channels, allowing a small population of unknown animals to move between them. Then there's the unsettling possibility that we're dealing with something far older, a relic from the age of megafauna that found refuge in these icy depths. Whatever the truth, the parallels are too striking to ignore. From the way these creatures move to the primal fear they evoke, the legends of Ogopogo and its American cousin remind us that some mysteries refuse to stay neatly within borders. And as long as these lakes remain unexplored, the stories and the search will continue. The waters of Silver Lake in western New York were quiet in 1855 until a clever hoax turned them into a spectacle. Local hotel owner Malachi Henry saw an opportunity to drum up business during the summer lull, so he enlisted two friends to build a monstrous puppet. Using canvas, wood, and a little ingenuity, they created a 20-foot sea serpent with gleaming eyes and articulated jaws, rigged to move through the water with hidden ropes. The first sighting caused immediate panic. Guests at Henry's lakeside property screamed as the creature emerged at dusk, its head rising menacingly above the waves before disappearing with a splash. Newspapers picked up the story, and soon crowds flocked to Silver Lake hoping for a glimpse of the beast. But here's where things get strange. Long after Henry confessed to his stunt, people kept seeing something in the lake, and these accounts bore little resemblance to his crude puppet. In 1880, a group of fishermen reported a sleek, eel-like creature moving with uncanny speed near the lake's deepest point. One swore it brushed against their boat with enough force to rock it sideways. Decades later, in 1924, a father and son fishing at dawn described a series of humps breaking the surface in perfect sequence, leaving a wake that vanished abruptly, like something dove straight down. These witnesses weren't credulous tourists, they were locals who knew every inch of those waters. The most chilling encounter came in 1989, when scuba diver Jim Richardson was exploring the lake's murky depths. His dive light caught something massive moving just outside visibility, range not the sluggish drift of a fish, but the fluid, purposeful motion of something far larger. Later, reviewing his dive computer, he noticed a bizarre temperature spike at the exact moment of the encounter, as if something warm-blooded had passed nearby. "I've dived with sharks, barracuda, you name it," he told reporters. "This didn't move like any of them. What started as a joke became a genuine mystery." Silver Lake's geography adds fuel to the speculation. Though relatively small, its depths drop sharply to over 100 feet, with underwater springs maintaining colder temperatures ideal for species that thrive in darkness. Some researchers suggest the real Silver Lake serpent could be an outsized muskellunge or a misplaced Atlantic sturgeon, but neither explains the humped sightings or Richardson's thermal anomaly. Others whisper about glacial relicts, creatures trapped when the lake formed 12,000 years ago. The lake's indigenous history offers another layer. The Seneca people's oral traditions mention a water spirit called Ganiajagawa, a serpentine being that tested travelers' respect for the lake. Early settlers dismissed these stories as superstition until their own encounters made them reconsider. Today, Silver Lake's monster exists in a liminal space between hoax and haunting. The town still celebrates Serpent Day each summer, a nod to Henry's original prank, but after dark, when the water goes still, even skeptics admit there's something uncanny about the way the moonlight dances on those black waves. Perhaps the greatest trick the Silver Lake serpent ever pulled was convincing people it was fake, only to reappear when they least expected it. Lake Memphremagog straddles the border between Vermont and Quebec, its dark waters holding a secret far older than the logging camps that once dotted its shores. French-Canadian lumberjacks called it ponic, a horned, serpentine horror that didn't just swim beneath the surface but hunted with chilling intelligence. These weren't campfire stories meant to spook newcomers. They were warnings passed between seasoned woodsmen who'd seen what happened to those who lingered too long by the water's edge after sundown. One account from 1879 stands out, preserved in the yellowed pages of the Newport Express. A logging crew reported losing 3 horses in a single week, not to wolves or accidents, but to something that dragged them screaming into the lake. The men described hearing splashes like a falling tree, followed by thrashing sounds that ended abruptly. When they investigated at dawn, they found drag marks leading into the shallows, the mud churned as if by something massive. Then came the detail that turned stomachs, strips of flesh and hoof fragments lodged in the shoreline rocks, as if whatever took the horses had torn them apart while they were still alive. Newspapers across New England picked up the story, some with skepticism, others with grim fascination. The Burlington Free Press interviewed a fisherman who claimed Ponic had capsized his skiff 2 summers prior, its horned head rising from the water like the devil's own pitchfork. Most striking was the consistency of the descriptions across decades. A creature 15 to 20 feet long, its body segmented like an eel but armored with bony plates, and that unmistakable pair of curved black horns protruding from its skull. Some witnesses swore its eyes glowed faintly in the dark, casting an eerie green reflection on the water. What makes Ponic different from other lake monsters isn't just its appearance, it's the way it behaves. Unlike passive cryptids like Champ or Bessie, Ponic's legend is steeped in violence. In 1892, a Quebecois trapper named Francois Bélanger disappeared near the lake's northern shores. Search parties found his abandoned canoe floating upside down, its hull scored with deep, parallel grooves, and his rifle still loaded, suggesting whatever attacked him moved too fast to fire. Indigenous Abenaki elders later told settlers this wasn't new. Their ancestors had spoken of a horned water panther in those waters for generations, a spirit that claimed those who disrespected the lake. Modern attempts to explain Ponic range from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some researchers suggest it could be an exaggerated account of a giant sturgeon, though no known species has horns or exhibits such aggressive behavior. Others point to the lake's unusual depth, nearly 300 feet in places, and its connection to underground channels, theorizing it might harbor an undiscovered species of predatory fish. Then there's the more unsettling notion that Ponic isn't an animal at all, but something older, something that shouldn't exist. The most compelling evidence might lie in the lake itself. Memphremagog's waters are unusually opaque, stained dark by tannins from decaying vegetation, making sonar readings unreliable. Divers report disorienting conditions below 50 feet, with visibility dropping to near zero. Could something truly be hiding in that perpetual gloom? In 2014, a team from the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department detected unexplained sonar contacts moving at speeds impossible for known fish species. The signals vanished when they tried to pursue them, leaving only speculative notes in their official report. Today, Ponic's legacy lingers. Local marinas sell whimsical stuffed toys bearing its likeness, but seasoned boaters still avoid certain coves after dark. Some swear the lake occasionally falls eerily silent, as if even the frogs and crickets sense something watching from below. Whether a case of collective folklore or something far stranger, one thing's certain: Lake Memphremagog keeps its secrets as closely guarded as the lumberjacks kept their warnings. And sometimes, when the mist rolls in just right, you can almost hear the old-timers' voices on the wind telling you to stay away from the water. July 2008 started like any other summer in Montauk, New York, until a group of teenagers stumbled upon something that would ignite one of the most bizarre cryptid debates of the internet age. Washed up on Ditch Plains Beach was a grotesque, hairless corpse unlike anything in the marine biology textbooks. Its bloated body was the size of a large dog, with leathery gray skin stretched taut over bizarre proportions. But it was the face that seared itself into public memory, a beak-like muzzle lined with jagged, exposed teeth and front paws that looked almost humanoid. The photos spread like wildfire online, with headlines screaming about a demon from the deep or some government experiment gone horribly wrong. The legend of the Montauk Monster was born. What made this case explode wasn't just the unsettling imagery, it was the perfect storm of mystery surrounding it. The body vanished before any official scientific analysis could be conducted, leaving only grainy cell phone photos and a trail of frantic speculation. Some swore it was a sea turtle mutated by radiation, pointing to the nearby Plum Island Animal Disease Center as ground zero. Others insisted it matched descriptions of the mythical Jersey Devil, suggesting it had crawled from the Pine Barrens and into the Atlantic. The most chilling theory came from a local fisherman who claimed similar creatures had been washing up for years, always at night, always before a storm, as if something deeper was pushing them ashore. Then came the scientists. Dr. Darren Naish, a vertebrate paleontologist, was among the first to dissect the photos forensically. His conclusion: a badly decomposed raccoon. The beak was a collapsed nasal cavity, the human hands swollen paw pads, and the hair loss a result of prolonged water exposure. Other biologists agreed, noting that ocean currents and scavengers can twist corpses into nightmarish shapes. But the internet wasn't convinced. Skeptics pointed to inconsistencies. Raccoons don't have that dental structure, nor do their limbs elongate post-mortem. Even more damning was a testimonial from a beachcomber who'd handled the body, describing a sulfuric stench and unnaturally dense bones that felt wrong when lifted. The deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. 7 months after the Montauk incident, an almost identical corpse appeared in Rhode Island, then another in Connecticut, each sporting the same hairless, beak-mouthed horror show. None were properly examined before disappearing, fueling theories of a cover-up. Some ufologists even connected the dots to the chupacabra phenomenon in Puerto Rico, suggesting a wave of unknown predators emerging worldwide. Meanwhile, marine biologists quietly floated another possibility. What if the Montauk monster was a deep-sea species we've never catalogued, its body ballooned and distorted by rapid decompression when washed ashore? What lingers isn't just the question of what that thing was, it's the way this case exposed our fascination with the unexplained. The Montauk monster became a Rorschach test for our deepest fears, of scientific arrogance, of nature's secrets, of the ocean as humanity's last great unknown. Even today, when a new Gloucester, an unidentifiable marine carcass washes up somewhere, the comparisons start immediately. Because in the end, science might explain 99% of these cases, but it's that 1%, the ones that slip through the cracks, that keep us staring at the waves with equal parts dread and wonder. And speaking of dread, let's head south to the swamps of Louisiana, where something far older and far hungrier is said to lurk beneath the murk, but that's a story for another time. St. Augustine Beach was quiet in November 1896, until the tide deposited a nightmare on the sand. At first, locals mistook the massive, gelatinous mound for a beached whale. But as they approached, the reality became far stranger. This thing was like no creature they'd ever seen, a grotesque 15-foot mass of blubbery flesh, streaked with veins and dotted with stumpy, arm-like protrusions. The stench alone drove bystanders back, a sulfuric reek that clung to clothes for days. Yet what truly horrified the crowd was its texture, rubbery and alien, peeling away in sheets like spoiled gelatin, with fibrous strands that resisted even the sharpest knives. The scientific community scrambled to explain it. Renaturalist DeWitt Webb, one of the first to examine the carcass, became convinced it was a gargantuan octopus, a notion that defied everything known about cephalopods. He documented its cartilaginous beak and what appeared to be remnants of suckers, arguing that no whale could possess such features, but skeptics struck back. Yale zoologist Addison Verrill dismissed it as a sperm whale's decomposing snout, its familiar features distorted by rot and salt water. The debate raged in academic journals for years, fueled by the fact that no one preserved the entire specimen. By the time scientists agreed to revisit the site, tides had reclaimed the evidence, leaving only grainy photographs and a handful of shriveled tissue samples. Yet the St. Augustine monster's legacy was just beginning. Among those fascinated by the case was a young writer named H.P. Lovecraft. The descriptions of that amorphous horror, its fungal texture, its otherworldly limbs, seemed to crawl straight into his nightmares. Decades later, echoes of the creature appeared in his iconic story, The Call of Cthulhu, where he described the titular cosmic entity as a monster of vaguely anthropoid outline, but with an octopus-like head whose face was a mass of feelers. The parallels were unmistakable. Lovecraft himself admitted in letters that real-world terrors like the Florida blob inspired his mythos, proving that sometimes reality breeds legends far stranger than fiction. Modern analyzers have only deepened the mystery. In 1995, biologists re-examined Webb's surviving samples using DNA testing. The results inconclusive. The degraded genetic material shared markers with both octopuses and whales, suggesting the truth might lie somewhere in between. Some cryptozoologists propose it was a colossal squid, a species once thought mythical until specimens were documented in the 20th century. Others wonder if it represented an entirely unknown branch of deep-sea life, something so alien to human understanding that even its decaying corpse defied classification. What lingers isn't just the question of what washed ashore that day, it's the way the St. Augustine monster forced science to confront the limits of its knowledge. The ocean, as Lovecraft understood, is our planet's last great frontier, a place where creatures beyond imagination might still lurk in the abyss. every time a new Gloucester washes up like the Bermuda Blob of 1988 or the Chilean monster of 2003, the debate reignites. Because in the end, the scariest possibility isn't that we'll never know what the St. Augustine monster was, but that one day another one might wash ashore, and this time it won't be dead. Most river monsters slither or swim, but along the banks of Ohio's Little Miami River, witnesses swear something walks on two legs. The summer of 1955 was scorching, the kind of heat that drives nocturnal creatures into the open. That's when a traveling salesman driving near Loveland just before dawn slammed his brakes for three figures crouched in the road. At first, he thought they were injured kids until their faces caught his headlights. Leathery skin, wide frog-like mouths, and eyes that reflected the light like a cat's. The tallest stood nearly 4 feet, its webbed fingers gripping what looked like a metal rod that hummed with an unnatural vibration. Then, in a flash, they scrambled over the guardrail and vanished into the river with barely a splash. The story might have been dismissed as heat exhaustion if history hadn't repeated itself 17 years later. In March 1972, a Loveland police officer patrolling Riverside Road spotted what he assumed was a dog lying in the pavement. As he stepped out to check, the creature sprang upright, standing on muscular hind legs. Its body was hairless, its skin textured like a reptile's, and those same bulbous eyes locked onto him before it vaulted into the water. The officer later admitted firing 2 shots at it, though no trace was ever found. 2 weeks later, another cop glimpsed the same thing or something like it, this time holding a glowing device that cast flickering light across the riverbank. What sets the Loveland frogmen apart isn't just their amphibious appearance, it's the eerie intelligence they seem to possess. The wand described in both encounters suggests tool use, a trait unheard of in known amphibians. Cryptozoologists have floated theories ranging from misidentified herons, though no bird has webbed hands to escape lab experiments, given Ohio's aerospace industry presence. But local Shawnee legends add a darker twist. Their oral histories speak of water panthers, shape-shifting entities that lured victims into the river with glowing objects. Could these creatures be modern echoes of something much older? The Little Miami River itself holds clues. Its limestone caves and underwater tunnels connect to larger systems, perfect for something that wants to stay hidden. Divers report strange acoustics in certain stretches, with sounds carrying farther than physics should allow, almost as if the rock formations were intentionally arranged to amplify noise. In 2019, a kayaker near Loveland recorded a bizarre metallic ping emanating from below his boat, followed by what sounded like guttural clicks. The audio, analyzed by marine biologists, matched no known aquatic species. Skeptics argue the frogmen were merely oversized bullfrogs, their proportions distorted by fear or poor lighting. Yet neither frogs nor any known reptile can stand bipedally for more than a second, let alone sprint like the creatures described. The consistency between the two police reports, separated by nearly 2 decades, lends an unsettling credibility. And then there's the matter of that device, whether it was a piece of stray machinery, a bioluminescent fungus, or something far stranger. It's the detail that haunts investigators most. Because if these things are real, and if they're carrying tools, that changes everything we think we know about what lurks in America's rivers. Perhaps the most chilling postscript comes from a retired cop who worked the 1972 case. Years later, he confessed to a colleague that he'd kept one detail out of his official report: the way the creature's pupils slit vertically when the flashlight hit them just before it hissed. Not like a frog at all, he said, like something that knew exactly what it was and exactly what we were. It was the summer of 1969, and Fort Worth's Lake Worth had always been a peaceful escape until the night everything changed. What started as a typical cookout under the stars turned into a scene ripped straight from a horror movie when a group of teenagers swore something lunged at their car with impossible force. Not a bear, not a stray dog, but a hulking, goat-legged creature covered in matted fur, its eyes reflecting the headlights like polished silver. The impact dented the vehicle's fender, and as the thing scrambled away, one witness swore it let out a sound half bleat, half snarl, before vanishing into the tree line with unnatural speed. The next morning, police found more than just shaken nerves. Scattered along the shoreline were tracks too bizarre to dismiss. Cloven hooves, but massive, sunk deep into the mud as if whatever made them weighed over 300 pounds. Then came the kicker, a tuft of coarse, white fur snagged on a barbed wire fence, too thick to belong to any local wildlife. Officers sketched the creature based on witness descriptions, and the drawing sent chills through the community. A 7-foot-tall monstrosity with the torso of a man, the legs of a goat, and a face that seemed stitched together from nightmares. What makes the Lake Worth monster stand out isn't just its hybrid appearance, it's the way it defies categorization. Most lake cryptids stick to the water, but this thing seemed equally at home on land, scaling steep embankments with eerie agility. Some speculated it was a feral man clad in animal hides, though no human could leap the distances witnesses described. Others whispered about government experiments citing nearby military bases. But the darkest theory came from local indigenous lore. The Tarrant County area was once Comanche territory, and their legends speak of Pia Mupitsi, a shape-shifting demon that took the form of horned beasts to punish trespassers. The sightings didn't stop at that summer. In 1970, a fisherman casting his line near Greer Island reported seeing the creature wading in the shallows, its matted fur dripping algae as it scooped whole fish into its mouth with clawed hands. Then, in 2007, a cyclist pedaling the trails at dusk claimed something hurled a dead tree branch at him from the undergrowth, followed by that same unearthly bleating. Each account added layers to the myth until it wasn't just a monster but a phenomenon. The lake itself seems to feed the legend. With its dense thickets and limestone caves, it's the perfect hideout for something that doesn't want to be found. Divers exploring the underwater ledges report an unsettling quiet, as if the fish avoid certain spots. And then there are the bones. Over the years, hikers have stumbled upon bizarre skeletal fragments, skulls with elongated jaws, vertebrae too thick for a deer, though none have ever been officially analyzed. Perhaps the most intriguing twist came from a retired park ranger in 2015, who admitted off the record that he'd seen something in the 70s while patrolling after dark. Not the goat man, but a series of strange, shallow pits dug along the shoreline, arranged in patterns that resembled crude symbols. They were filled with fish heads and jagged stones, still wet as if something, or someone had been using them recently. He never reported it, fearing ridicule, but the memory haunted him. Whatever's out there, he said, it's not just an animal. Animals don't build altars. Today, Lake Worth's monster lives on in campfire stories and local murals, a blend of urban legend and something far older. The police sketches still surface online, sparking debates about pareidolia or primal fears. But for those who have heard the rustling in the reeds or seen the shadows move against the moonlit water, the truth is simpler. Some legends don't stay buried. And sometimes the things that go bump in the night aren't just stories, they're warnings. Now, let's leave the Texas heat behind and head north, where the waters of the Great Lakes hide a predator with a taste for deep, dark silence. Lake Tahoe isn't just a scenic wonder straddling Nevada and California. It's a bottomless vault hiding something ancient and unsettling. Below those crystal-clear waters, which plunge over 1,600 feet deep, locals whisper about Tahoe Tessie, a serpentine specter that's been gliding through indigenous lore and modern sonar readings alike. The Washoe people called it Ongo, a guardian spirit that could bless fishermen or drag the disrespectful into the abyss. Their stories describe it as a giant eel with scales like obsidian and eyes that glow like embers in the dark, a creature older than the mountains surrounding the lake. Fast forward to July 1984, when a research submarine mapping Tahoe's uncharted depths picked up something extraordinary, a 40-foot-long anomaly moving against the current at speeds impossible for any known fish. The pilot, a seasoned marine biologist, later confessed he'd never seen anything like it. It wasn't just the size, he said. It was the way it moved, sinuous, deliberate, like it knew we were there. The sonar signature showed multiple humps ruling out a sturgeon, and its thermal profile suggested a metabolism unlike cold-blooded lake dwellers. The encounter lasted barely 20 seconds before the thing vanished into the trench below Cave Rock, a site the Washoe still consider sacred. What makes Tessie so compelling isn't just the sightings, it's the lake itself. Tahoe's sheer depth creates a phenomenon called deep water renewal, where frigid layers trap nutrients and possibly creatures far below the reach of sunlight. In 2008, a team from the University of California deployed hydrophones to study seismic activity and recorded something unnerving: low-frequency pulses resembling echolocation, but at a pitch no freshwater animal should produce. One researcher compared it to a biological sonar, theorizing Tessie might navigate the pitch-black trenches using a sensory system we don't yet understand. Then there's the matter of cave rocks underwater tunnels. Local divers swear some passages are too smooth, too symmetrical to be natural formations, with odd scrape marks along the walls. In 2017, a drone submersible exploring these tunnels malfunctioned at 300 feet, its cameras capturing a blur of movement before the feed cut out. When retrieved, the drone's hull bore long, parallel scratches, as if something with claws had tried to grip it. Modern attempts to dismiss Tessie as a misidentified schools of trout or gas bubbles ignore the consistency of the accounts. Washoe elders speak of ongo rising during lunar eclipses, a detail echoed by a group of kayakers in 2021 who reported a series of humps surfacing under the blood moon. And let's not forget the infamous Tessie tape of 1992, when a vacationer filmed a dark, undulating shape near Zephyr Cove. Experts analyzed the footage frame by frame, noting the object's movement created a wake pattern inconsistent with debris or waves. Could Tahoe's extreme depth harbor a relic population of prehistoric eels? Some scientists point to the Pacific lamprey, a jawless fish that migrates through connected rivers, but nothing explains the 30-foot lengths described. Others wonder if Tessie is a species of deep-water pinniped, an unknown cousin to seals that adapted to freshwater. Then there's the wilder theory that Tahoe's volcanic origins opened fissures to subterranean waterways, allowing creatures from another time to slip through. Whatever the truth, Tessie's legend is woven into the fabric of the lake. Marina shops sell plush toys, sure, but seasoned boaters still avoid certain coves at dusk. Fishermen speak of nets torn open by something stronger than a lake trout, and night swimmers tell of sudden cold spots where the water shouldn't be that cold. The Washoe say ongo isn't a monster. It's a reminder the lake gives, but it also takes, and in those silent moments when the surface goes glassy and the mountain's reflections stretch into the deep, it's easy to believe something is looking back. Lake Superior doesn't freeze easily. Its waters are too vast, too deep, too restless, but something else has lingered in those frigid depths for centuries, slithering through Ojibwe legends and modern sonar scans alike. They call it Pressie, a serpentine enigma whose name echoes the Prisk Isle River where so many encounters begin. Unlike other lake cryptids, Pressie doesn't just reveal itself in glimpses, it hunts. Or at least, that's what the crew of the fishing vessel Mako claimed one stormy night in August 1977. They were trawling near pictured rocks, the sandstone cliffs towering like sentinels in the moonlight when the water behind them began to boil. At first, they blamed a rogue wave until the wake kept pace with their engine. Then they saw it, a sinuous shadow longer than their 30-foot boat, cutting through the water with terrifying precision. The captain, a grizzled mariner named Arn Johnson, later swore it wasn't just following them, it was herding them, driving the Mako toward shallow reefs as if it understood the terrain better than they did. Only when Johnson revved the engine to near dangerous speeds did the thing finally submerge, leaving behind a swirl of foam and a crew too shaken to speak. What makes Pressie different from other Great Lakes monsters isn't just its aggression, it's the consistency of the descriptions across 200 years. Ojibwe elders spoke of Mishapeshu, a horned water panther that could stretch into serpent form, its coils capable of capsizing canoes. French fur traders in the 1700s wrote of a dragonfish that surfaced near Isle Royale, its scales glittering like wet slate. Even skeptical biologists take note of the 1993 account from a Coast Guard patrol, who radioed in a large eel-like organism moving against the current near Marquette. The officer's exact words, "Not a log, not a sturgeon," advise caution. The lake itself seems designed to hide such secrets. Superior's average depth hovers around 500 feet, with trenches plunging to 1,300, deeper than some oceans. Its temperatures rarely rise above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a preserved, almost timeless environment where strange things might endure unseen. Divers exploring shipwrecks near the Apostle Islands report eerie currents that shift direction without warning, as if something massive is moving just outside visibility. In 2015, a team from Michigan Tech University dropped hydrophones to monitor quake activity and picked up something else entirely, a series of low-frequency clicks, too structured to be geologic, that seemed to echo across the lakebed for hours before vanishing. Then there's the matter of the scars. Commercial fishermen have hauled up nets shredded by something far stronger than a muskie, the strands frayed as if sliced by serrated edges. In 2012, a kayaker near Grand Marais photographed a bizarre mark on a beached log, a row of puncture wounds spaced a foot apart, matching no known predator's bite. When a local paleontologist examined it, he quietly noted the spacing resembled the teeth of Basilosaurus, a prehistoric whale extinct for 34 million years. Could Pressie be a relic species, some long-thought-lost creature that found refuge in Superior's icy isolation? Some researchers point to the lake's glacial history, suggesting tunnels carved by melting ice might connect to subterranean waterways, allowing migratory species to come and go undetected. Others propose a more unsettling idea, that Superior's depths harbor an apex predator we've never classified, something with the intelligence to avoid nets and sonar. After all, we've only mapped about 5% of the lake's floor. The most haunting detail comes not from science but from lore. Ojibwe stories warn that Mishapeshu grows restless when the lake is mistreated, a lesson echoed in 1985 when a surge of Pressie sightings followed a toxic spill near Silver Bay. Coincidence, maybe, but the next time you stand on Superior's shores, watching the waves roll in like endless questions, listen closely. The lake keeps its secrets, but it never stays silent for long. Booth Bay Harbor in the late 1800s was a place of salt-stained docks and whispered superstitions, where fishermen traded stories as readily as they hauled their catch. But one tale stood out even among the tall tales, the legend of the Lobster Boy. In 1883, a crew hauling nets off the coast of Maine allegedly pulled up something impossible. A child-sized creature with the pink, mottled skin of a human but the segmented limbs and shell-like plates of a crustacean. According to the sailors, the thing thrashed in the net, its claw-like fingers snapping weakly before it succumbed to the air. What happened next depends on who you ask. Some claim the creature died within hours, its gills drying out on deck. Others insist it lived long enough to be sold to a traveling circus, where it became a macabre sideshow attraction billed as the Maine Merman. Newspapers of the era carried conflicting reports, some dismissing it as a hoax involving a deformed stillborn dressed in dried lobster parts, while others quoted reputable witnesses who swore the thing had blinked at them with eerily human eyes. The most chilling account came from a Boston Globe reporter who visited the alleged exhibit in 1885, describing a glass jar holding a small, twisted figure with jointed appendages fused to its spine like the remnants of a carapace. The debate over the lobster boy's origins splits sharply between two camps. Skeptics point to the dark history of carnival exploitation in the 19th century, where birth defects and genetic conditions were packaged as freaks for profit. They argue the creature was likely a child with harlequin ichthyosis, a severe skin disorder causing thick, plate-like scales, or perhaps a gruesome art project stitched together from sea life and medical oddities. But cryptozoologists counter with a grimmer possibility that the fishermen stumbled upon something far stranger. Indigenous Wabanaki legends from the region speak of aglulic, shape-shifting spirits that could take half-human forms to lure sailors into the depths. Could the lobster boy have been a living relic of these stories, a being caught between worlds? The harbor itself adds fuel to the mystery. Booth Bay's waters are a nexus of deep sea trenches and cold seeps areas where methane bubbles from the seafloor, creating ecosystems teeming with life that defy textbook biology. In 2014, marine biologists discovered a new species of lobster hybrid crustacean near the same shallows, its DNA showing bizarre mutations from prolonged exposure to these chemical vents. While nowhere near humanoid, the find raises unsettling questions. What other hybrids might lurk in those lightless depths? And if the lobster boy was real, was it a tragic accident of nature or something far more deliberate? Perhaps the most haunting detail comes from the descendants of those 19th century fishermen. In 2010, a local historian uncovered a diary entry from one of the crew's grandsons describing a family secret. The men had heard noises before hauling the net that day, something like a child crying from beneath the waves. The sound stopped the moment the creature breached the surface. Whether hoax, horror, or something in between, the lobster boy remains a cautionary relic of Maine's maritime past, a reminder that the ocean doesn't just hide its monsters. Sometimes it lets us catch them. In the quiet farmlands of Indiana, where cornfields stretch to the horizon and ponds shimmer under the Midwest sun, the summer of 1949 should have been just another season until the beast of Busco surfaced. What started as a local curiosity about an unusually large snapping turtle spiraled into a spectacle of dredged lakes, panicked mobs, and a cryptid craze that blurred the line between lake monster and folklore. Farmers near the town of Churubusco had whispered about Oscar, a colossal turtle lurking in the murk of Fulk Lake for decades. But when farmer Gail Harris claimed to spot a shell, wide as a tractor tire, breaking the surface, the legend took on a life of its own. The descriptions were terrifyingly specific: a carapace measuring over 6 feet across, claws capable of snapping oars in half, and eyes that glowed yellow in the dusk. Witnesses swore the creature moved with unnatural speed, vanishing into the lake's depths like a submarine. By August, the hysteria reached fever pitch. Harris, determined to prove the beast's existence, recruited crews to drain the lake, a feat requiring gasoline-powered pumps running non-stop for weeks. Crowds gathered daily, some with cameras, others with pitchforks, all eager to catch a glimpse of the monster that had turned their sleepy town into a media circus. Newspapers as far as Chicago sent reporters, dubbing Busco Turtle Town, you say, while skeptics dismissed it as mass delusion or a hoax to drum up tourism. But here's where the story twists. Unlike classic sea serpent tales, the beast of Busco wasn't some elusive, finned anomaly. It was a reptile, something theoretically plausible. Snapping turtles do grow massive. The alligator snapping turtle, native to the southern U.S., can exceed 200 pounds. Yet Oscar's reported size dwarfed even those behemoths, fueling theories of a prehistoric survivor or a mutant strain. The town's obsession mirrored the fervor of medieval dragon hunts, complete with failed traps including a 400-pound steel cage baited with chickens and a carnival atmosphere. When the drained lake yielded only mud and disappointed onlookers, Some claimed the beast had burrowed into underground tunnels, a narrative loophole that kept the legend alive. What makes the Beast of Busco unique isn't just its absurdity, but how it hijacked sea monster tropes and transplanted them to heartland America. Normally, oceanic cryptids thrive on the unknown, their habitats too vast to disprove. But Fulk Lake was a modest farm pond, barely 20 acres. Draining it should have been the ultimate debunking, yet the absence of evidence became its own kind of proof. Locals spun new theories. Maybe Oscar slithered to a neighboring pond under cover of darkness. Maybe he was a spirit, a turtle version of the Jersey Devil, as one journalist quipped. The town, unwilling to relinquish its claim to fame, erected a 6-foot-tall fiberglass turtle statue in the 1970s, cementing the beast's place in Indiana lore. The legacy lingers in unexpected ways. Modern herpetologists note that invasive snapping turtles, displaced by habitat loss, do occasionally turn up in unlikely places, their sizes exaggerated by fear. But the deeper truth lies in the spectacle itself, how quickly a rural community rallied around a shared myth, turning a mundane creature into a symbol of defiance against the ordinary. The Beast of Busco wasn't just a turtle. It was a reminder that even in America's flattest, most surveyed landscapes, mystery can still erupt from the mud. And sometimes the loudest tales aren't about what was found, but what refused to be caught. The waters of the Great Lakes have seen their fair share of monsters, but none unsettle the imagination quite like the skinfin, a creature that blurs the line between shark and human. Descriptions from modern witnesses are chillingly consistent. A humanoid figure covered in mottled, grayish skin, its elongated arms ending in clawed fingers, and a face dominated by dark, lidless eyes. But it's the lower half that haunts most accounts, a powerful, thrashing tail lined with jagged ridges, moving through the water with the speed and precision of a predator. The first documented encounter came in 1998, when a group of divers exploring a shipwreck near Lake Michigan's South Manitou Island reported being circled by something that defied logic. One diver, Mark Valier, later described the way it paused just beyond their lights, its torso twisting in a way that seemed almost curious before it vanished into the blackness with a flick of that grotesque tail. Ojibwe elders have another name for it, Mishibishu, a shape-shifting water spirit often depicted with the traits of both man and beast. Their stories warn that the skinfin isn't just an animal, it's a guardian, a punisher of those who disrespect the lakes. Traditional birchbark scrolls depict it with serrated fins and a hunger for the drowned, a detail that aligns eerily with modern reports of missing swimmers whose bodies are later found with strange, crescent-shaped lacerations. In 2012, a commercial fisherman near Whitefish Point pulled up a net torn clean through, the edges frayed as if sliced by something far sharper than fish teeth. Wrapped in the wreckage was a single, sickly gray scale the size of a poker chip, its surface ridged like sandpaper. Biologists who examined it were baffled. The closest match was the hide of a Greenland shark, a deep-sea species not native to freshwater. Skeptics argue the skinfin is a case of mistaken identity, perhaps an oversized sturgeon, its prehistoric appearance magnified by fear. Lake sturgeon can reach lengths of 8 feet, their armored bodies and whisker-like barbels lending them an almost alien quality. But this theory falters under scrutiny. Sturgeon are bottom feeders, slow-moving and docile, while skinfin accounts describe a creature that hunts, that moves with unnerving agility. Then there's the matter of the arms. In 2017, a kayaker on Lake Huron captured blurry footage of something partially submerged near Thunder Bay. The video, stabilized and enhanced, revealed a pair of thin, humanoid limbs breaking the surface, their fingers splayed as if reaching. No fish, no known vertebrate for that matter, has such anatomy. The most unsettling encounters suggest a level of intelligence that goes beyond instinct. In 2020, a Coast Guard patrol near the Mackinac Bridge reported a distant figure treading water in the moonlight. As they approached, the thing dove, but not before turning to face them, its eyes reflecting the spotlight with an unnatural greenish glow. The officer's log noted the creature's movement was deliberate, almost observational, a far cry from the panicked flight of wildlife. Could this be a case of mass hallucination? Possibly. But the Great Lakes are a hotbed of unusual phenomena, from magnetic anomalies to deep water trenches that remain unmapped. In 2022, a team from the University of Michigan detected unexplained sonar contacts near the Straits of Mackinac, objects that moved vertically in the water column, a behavior inconsistent with fish or debris. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between biology and myth. The skinfin could be a genetic aberration, a mutated hybrid of known species twisted by pollution or some deeper, older force. Or maybe, as the Ojibwe have warned for centuries, the lakes have always held things we're not meant to understand. One thing's certain, the skinfin isn't just a story. It's a reflection of our deepest, darkest fear that in the water we're not the hunters, we're the hunted. Lake Thunderbird's glassy surface shattered one quiet morning in the summer of 1965 when something impossible emerged near Norman, Oklahoma. A group of teenage boys skipping rocks at dawn froze as a long, serpentine neck broke the water, its mottled skin glistening in the early light. For a heartbeat, they swore they were staring at a living dinosaur, a creature with a horse-sized head, dark eyes the size of saucers, and a body that seemed to stretch endlessly beneath the waves. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the thing submerged, leaving behind a swirling eddy and a story no one would believe. But the boys weren't the first to see it. Dig deeper and you'll find that the Choctaw Nation's oral histories have whispered of similar beasts for centuries. They spoke of Nalusafalaya, or long black beings, water spirits that took the form of panthers with serpentine tails, guardians of the lakes and rivers. These weren't just stories to frighten children. They were sacred warnings tied to specific landmarks where the veil between worlds grew thin. One elder's account, passed down through generations, describes a creature near present-day Lake Thunderbird with a neck like a bent tree, rising from the water to drag disrespectful fishermen into the depths. The parallels are unnerving. What makes the 1965 sighting so compelling isn't just the eyewitnesses, it's the aftermath. The boys ran home screaming, their clothes splattered with an oily, foul-smelling residue that wouldn't wash off. One claimed the substance burned his skin, leaving blisters that lingered for weeks. When a local reporter investigated, he found streaks of the same slick, tar-like fluid pooled along the shoreline, though laboratory analysis at the time came back inconclusive. Decades later, cryptozoologists revisiting the case speculated it could have been a secretion from some unknown aquatic species, a defensive mechanism like that of a hagfish or a deep-sea invertebrate. But nothing in Oklahoma's known ecosystem fits. The lake itself adds another layer of mystery. Built in the 1960s as a reservoir, Thunderbird sits atop land once crisscrossed by natural springs, some rumored to be sacred to the Choctaw. Divers exploring its deepest trenches report strange thermoclines where the water temperature shifts abruptly, creating pockets of near-freezing cold in otherwise warm shallows. In 2009, a team from Oklahoma State University deploying sonar detected a massive, slow-moving object near the lakebed, its shape inconsistent with any known fish. The signal vanished before they could capture a clear image, leaving researchers to wonder if fault lines or underwater caves might offer hidden passageways for something larger. Skeptics dismiss the Thunderbird dinosaur as a misidentified garfish or a swimming deer, their necks elongated by refraction and panic. But gar don't leave oily residue and deer don't submerge for minutes at a time. Others suggest a rogue alligator snapping turtle, though none on record match the described size or behavior. The most tantalizing theory ties the creature to Oklahoma's ancient past, when much of the state was submerged under a shallow sea. Could a relict population of plesiosaurs or other Mesozoic survivors have adapted to freshwater, escaping notice in the murky depths? It sounds outrageous, but consider this. In 2014, fishermen in the nearby Illinois River hauled up a paddlefish with vestigial features reminiscent of prehistoric species, a so-called living fossil, thriving unnoticed until then. The most haunting detail comes from the Choctaw stories. Elders say Nelusa doesn't just appear randomly, it's drawn to disruption, to moments when the land or water is disturbed. Lake Thunderbird was flooded in part by damming the little river, submerging ancestral sites beneath its waters. Maybe the creature, whatever it is, wasn't just passing through that summer morning. Maybe it was reminding those boys and all of us that some places hold memories deeper than we know. Today, Thunderbird remains a popular spot for boating and fishing, though locals still swap stories about the thing in the lake. Some joke about it, others avoid certain coves after dark. But every now and then, when the light slants just right across the water, you'll catch someone pausing, staring a little too long at the ripples. Because in Oklahoma, where the plains meet the unknown, even a man-made lake can hide something older than history. And sometimes, just sometimes, the past doesn't stay buried. The Mississippi River has carried steamboats, trade routes, and American history along its currents for centuries, but beneath that muddy surface, something far older might be lurking. From the bluffs of Minnesota to the quiet bends near Iowa, locals have whispered about Pepai for generations, a serpentine nightmare with the snout of an alligator and the armored back of a stegosaurus. The earliest accounts trace back to the 1860s, when fur traders near La Crosse wrote of a great fish dragon that capsized their canoes, its spined tail whipping the water into a froth. But unlike fleeting cryptid sightings, Pepai's legend refuses to fade. Witnesses across 3 centuries describe the same unsettling details: a body the length of a boxcar, ridges along its spine like half-buried railroad ties, and a habit of surfacing just long enough to lock eyes with onlookers before vanishing into the silt-choked depths. What catapulted Pepai from regional folklore into modern cryptid fame was a series of sonar readings in 2010. A team led by local businessman Larry Nielsen dragged high-frequency scanners across Lake Pepin, a wide stretch of the Mississippi between Minnesota and Wisconsin. The images they captured sent chills through the cryptozoology community, a 40-foot-long anomaly with segmented body sections, moving against the current at speeds no known fish could sustain. Even more compelling was the thermal data, suggesting the thing had a metabolism inconsistent with cold-blooded reptiles. Skeptics dismissed it as a school of sturgeon or a submerged log, but Nielsen doubled down, offering a $50,000 reward for definitive proof of Pepai's existence. The bounty drew divers, drone operators, and even a paranormal research group, all hoping to crack the case. Theories about Pepai's identity range from the plausible to the wildly speculative. Some biologists suggest it could be an oversized garfish, a prehistoric-looking predator native to the Mississippi with elongated snouts and diamond-shaped scales. But gar rarely exceed 10 feet, and nothing explains the humped ridges described by witnesses. Others point to the river's ancient past. 70 million years ago, this region was part of the Western Interior Seaway, home to mosasaurs and other marine reptiles. Could a remnant population have adapted to freshwater? The idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. In 2018, fishermen near Dubuque hauled up a pallid sturgeon with vestigial hind flippers, a throwback trait unseen in modern specimens. Indigenous Dakota legends add another layer of intrigue. Their stories describe Untaha-ha, water spirits that took the form of giant horned serpents. Petroglyphs along the riverbanks depict creatures eerily similar to modern Pepai accounts, complete with spinal crests. Some elders believe these beings are guardians, appearing when the river's balance is threatened, a notion that gained traction after the 2012 drought, when Pepai sightings spiked as water levels hit record lows. The most chilling encounter came in 2015, when a family kayaking near Winona reported a series of massive bubbles erupting beside them, followed by a wake that defied the current. One member swore she saw a shadow unfolding beneath the kayaks like a freight train, its movement vibrating through their hulls. Seconds later, their GoPro captured a blur of motion, something dark and jagged darting just below the surface before the camera was knocked into the water. When recovered, the footage showed a single, unnerving frame, a textured, scale-like pattern that didn't match any known river fauna. Today, Pepai's legacy thrives in a peculiar mix of tourism and genuine belief. The town of Pepin hosts an annual Monster Dash race, complete with mascots and T-shirts, while seasoned riverboat captains still swap stories about the thing that bumps their hulls on moonless nights. Whether a biological oddity, a cultural touchstone, or something beyond our understanding, one thing's certain: the Mississippi keeps its secrets as close as its muddy banks. And somewhere in those swirling eddies between the barges and the bald eagles, Pepai watches and waits. Lewes Beach was supposed to be a quiet stretch of Delaware shoreline until the summer of 1926, when the tide left behind something that defied every known law of biology. At dawn on August 14th, a clam digger named Elias Hargrove stumbled upon a nightmare sprawled across the wet sand. A 15-foot-long, segmented horror with what he swore were 100 legs writhing like they were still alive. The creature's body resembled a nightmarish hybrid of eel and centipede, its chitinous plates glistening under the rising sun, each segment sprouting pairs of spindly appendages. But the worst part, its face, if you could call it that, was a gaping, toothless maw flanked by two bulbous, milky eyes that seemed to stare even in death. News of the Lewes Beach monster spread like wildfire. The Smithsonian Institution, intrigued by reports, dispatched a junior zoologist named Dr. Curtis Wilbur to collect the specimen. What he found baffled him. In his field notes later unearthed in the Smithsonian archives, he described the creature's exoskeleton as neither arthropod nor annelid, with a gelatinous underlayer that dissolved upon contact with formaldehyde. Before he could transport it, however, the carcass vanished overnight. Some blamed rival collectors, others whispered about a panicked town official who had it burned. The only remaining evidence, a single, blurry photograph published in the Lewes Journal, showing a twisted, coiled mass that looks less like any known sea creature and more like something pulled from a fever dream. Theories about what washed ashore that day range from the plausible to the Lovecraftian. Marine biologists suggest it could have been a freakishly large sea cucumber or a decomposing whale shark, its connective tissue frayed into leg-like strands. Cryptozoologists point to ancient sightings of sea centipedes, in Norse and Inuit lore entities said to prowl deep trenches, only surfacing during storms. But the most unsettling explanation comes from Delaware's own indigenous Lenape traditions. Their stories speak of Mhiu, a serpentine decomposer that emerges to cleanse polluted waters, its countless legs churning toxins into harmless silt. Coincidentally, 1926 marked the peak of industrial waste dumping in Delaware Bay, a fact that adds eerie weight to the legend. What makes this case unique isn't just the mystery, it's the way it exposes science's limitations. The Smithsonian's initial report listed the specimen as likely a mass of decaying siphonophores, a colonial jellyfish, but siphonophores don't have legs, nor do they leave behind chitinous husks. Modern re-examinations of the photo suggest the creature's segmented anatomy resembles extinct Cambrian organisms like Hallucigenia, a spine-backed enigma that predates dinosaurs by millions of years. Could the Lewes monster have been a living fossil dislodged from some undiscovered abyssal plain, or something else entirely, a creature so alien to our understanding that it slipped through the cracks of history, leaving only a whisper of its existence in a faded newspaper clipping? The beach today shows no trace of that August morning, but locals still talk about it in hushed tones. old-timers warn kids not to dig too deep in the tidal flats, just in case something else is waiting beneath the sand. And sometimes, when the fog rolls in thick off the bay, you'll catch fishermen glancing over their shoulders at the water's edge because the ocean doesn't just hide its monsters. Sometimes it sends them ashore. Lake Lania's sunlit waters hide a darkness that's not just in its depths, but in its history, created in the 1950s by flooding valleys and drowning entire towns beneath its surface. This Georgia reservoir was supposed to be a recreational paradise. Instead, it became the stage for one of the most chilling vanishings in American cryptid lore. In 1958, a skilled diver named Jake McAllister descended to inspect the dam's construction and never resurfaced. Search teams scoured the newly formed lake for weeks, but his body was never found. That should have been the end of the story, until swimmers started reporting something far worse than a missing man. They spoke of skeletal hands brushing their ankles in the murk, of a figure in tattered diving gear looming just beyond visibility, its hollow eyes reflecting the sunlight filtering through the water. What makes the phantom diver different from typical ghost stories isn't just the consistency of the reports, it's the way they intersect with older, darker legends. Before Lania was a lake, the valleys it swallowed were home to Cherokee settlements, their burial grounds now submerged. Tribal elders warned that disturbing these waters would wake Nunihi, the spirit people who guard sacred places. Some believe McAllister didn't just drown, he was claimed, transformed into something that now enforces the lake's grim balance. Modern encounters suggest this isn't merely a restless spirit, it's a predator. In 2003, a kayaker capsized near the old Dawsonville Bridge and swore something gripped his life jacket, dragging him downward before inexplicably releasing him. Rescuers found deep scratches across his back, too evenly spaced to be random debris. The lake's geography fuels the terror. Lania's depths conceal the ruins of houses, churches, and graveyards, their silhouettes visible on sonar like a sunken ghost town. Divers exploring these structures report sudden temperature drops, equipment malfunctions, and most unsettling, the distant sound of metallic clanging, as if McAllister's tools are still at work. In 2017, a marine salvage team searching for a missing jet ski detected a humanoid shape on their screens near the original dam site. It moved against the current, paused near their submersible, then dissolved into the gloom. The team's leader, a 30-year veteran, refused to dive again in Lania, stating plainly, "There's something down there that doesn't want us." Skeptics dismiss the phantom diver as misidentified base or the eerie psychological effect of swimming over submerged structures. But the numbers defy easy explanation. Lake Lania averages 5 drownings a year, twice the rate of similar-sized reservoirs, with many victims found in areas where the water is shallow enough to stand. Then there are the disappearances. Since 1990, at least 8 swimmers have vanished without a trace, their bodies never recovered despite exhaustive searches. Local fishermen whisper about clean skeletons, occasionally snagged in their nets, bones picked bare, with dive weights still strapped to the ankles. The most haunting theory ties it all together. Some say the phantom diver isn't just McAllister, it's a collective of the drowned, a spectral patrol bound to the lake by unfinished business. Witnesses describe varying forms: a woman in a flowing dress near the old Looper Speedway Cemetery, a Civil War soldier in waterlogged blues, even a group of children holding hands beneath the submerged Gainesville Midland Railroad tracks. But one detail remains constant across accounts: the diver's helmet, its faceplate cracked and blackened, always watching from just beyond the light's reach. Whether a tragic ghost, a cryptid hybrid, or something older and more vengeful, the phantom diver has become Lake Lania's dark heart. The county posts safety warnings, the dive shops joke nervously, but everyone who's felt that sudden tug on their leg knows the truth. Some waters don't just hold secrets, they hold grudges, and in Lania's case, the deeper you go, the more you realize you're not the one doing the exploring. You're being hunted. San Francisco's fog-choked waters have spawned their share of sea monster tales, but none blur the line between hoax and horror quite like the infamous merman of 1901. It began when a traveling carnival rolled into the Barbary Coast district, boasting a grisly attraction: the mummified remains of a half-human, half-fish creature, its lips curled in a permanent snarl and webbed fingers frozen as if mid-swim. For weeks, crowds paid a nickel to gawk at the specimen, its papier-mâché scales and garishly painted glass eyes passing as proof of the supernatural, until a drunk sailor toppled the exhibit, revealing its wooden armature and horsehair tail. The circus packed up overnight, but the damage was done. The image of that grotesque hybrid had already slithered into the city's collective imagination, merging with older sailors' yarns about serpentine shapes gliding beneath the bay's surface. Decades later, long after the merman was dismissed as a sideshow sham, something far more unsettling began haunting the Golden Gate. In the summer of 1984, a group of marine biologists tracking great white sharks near Alcatraz picked up a sonar signature that defied logic: a 20-foot-long silhouette moving with the speed of a predator but undulating vertically like an eel. Their hydrophones captured a sound unlike any shark vocalization: low, pulsing clicks that seemed almost structured, as if mimicking sonar pings. Then came the eyewitness accounts. Ferry passengers reported a dorsal fin, taller than a man, slicing through the water near Angel Island, only to vanish without a splash. A night fisherman near Sausalito swore something bumped his boat with enough force to knock him sideways, his lantern illuminating a flash of mottled gray skin and a tail that rolled like a conveyor belt before disappearing. The contrast between these two eras of bay legends couldn't be starker. Where the merman was a crude puppet designed to thrill and deceive, the 80s sightings were documented by scientists and seasoned mariners, people trained to observe. Some researchers speculate the latter could have been an errant oarfish or a sleeper shark venturing into unusually warm waters, but the descriptions share eerie commonalities with indigenous Ohlone stories of Hutash, a shape-shifting sea spirit said to guard the bay's entrance. Tribal elders describe it taking forms ranging from a serpent to a shark with too many teeth, a detail that aligns uncomfortably with 1992 accounts from a Coast Guard crew who reported a thrashing mass near the bridge piers, its jaws lined with overlapping rows of needle-like fangs. What makes these twin legends so compelling isn't just their strangeness, it's the way they reflect San Francisco's duality. A city built on gold rush hustles and scientific progress, where fakery and fact often swim in the same waters. The merman hoax exploited that tension, preying on the human desire to believe in the impossible. The 80s encounters, meanwhile, forced even skeptics to grapple with the ocean's unanswered questions. After all, if a circus could fake a monster so convincingly over a century ago, how much harder would it be to dismiss something real today, especially when the bay's deepest trenches remain as uncharted as they were in the Ohlone's time? Perhaps the most haunting postscript comes from a marine archaeologist who spent decades studying the bay's shipwrecks. In 2019, while surveying a submerged landslide near the Golden Gate southern tower, her team's RV cameras glitched momentarily. When the feed restored, the monitors showed something darting past, a blur of segmented flesh and what looked like a single, unblinking eye pressed against the lens. The footage, later enhanced, revealed nothing conclusive, but as she noted in her unpublished field log, the ocean doesn't need hoaxes to keep us guessing. It's been hiding truths far stranger than anything we could invent. Lake Iliamna in Alaska isn't just the state's largest body of freshwater, it's the stage for one of the most perplexing aquatic mysteries in North America. For centuries, the Dena'ina people have spoken of Eli, a colossal fish that prowls the lake's frigid depths, its bulbous head and hulking frame dwarfing even the mightiest salmon. But this isn't just legend. Modern eyewitnesses, commercial pilots, fishermen, even wildlife biologists swear they've seen something monstrous beneath Iliamna's surface, a creature that defies every known classification. The descriptions are eerily consistent: a 30-foot-long behemoth with a blunt, rounded head and a body as thick as a Volkswagen, moving through the water with slow, deliberate undulations. In 1942, Bush pilot Bob de Armand spotted one from the air, describing it as a submarine with fins, its shadow stretching longer than his plane's wingspan. Decades later, in 1988, a group of sport fishermen near the lake's northern inlet watched in stunned silence as something massive and pale surged beneath their boat, leaving a wake that rocked them like a tidal swell. One of them, a retired marine biologist, later admitted, "I've studied marine life across 5 continents. Nothing in the literature matches what I saw that day." What sets these accounts apart from typical lake monster lore is the scientific intrigue surrounding them. Unlike serpentine cryptids like Champ or Ogopogo, Eli's physical traits suggest a possible misidentification, not of a mythical beast but of a real, albeit poorly understood, deep-sea predator, the Pacific sleeper shark. These elusive giants, normally found in the icy waters of the Bering Sea, can reach lengths of 23 feet and are known for their sluggish, almost lethargic movements. Some researchers speculate that a landlocked population could have adapted to Iliamna's freshwater, their bloated, ghostly appearance explaining the bulbous head descriptions. But the sleeper shark theory doesn't quite fit all the pieces. For one thing, sleeper sharks are deep ocean creatures, rarely venturing into shallow waters, let alone freshwater lakes. Iliamna, while vast, has a maximum depth of just 900 feet, hardly the abyssal environment these sharks prefer. Then there's the matter of the color. Witnesses repeatedly describe Eli as pale, almost white, while sleeper sharks are typically slate gray or black. Even more puzzling are the accounts of multiple creatures surfacing together, their movements coordinated, as if hunting in packs, behavior unheard of in solitary sleeper sharks. Local indigenous stories add another layer of complexity. The Denilina don't just describe Eli as a large fish, they speak of it as a spiritual guardian, a being that appears during times of ecological imbalance. In 2010, after a surge of Eli sightings coincided with a sudden collapse of the lake's sockeye salmon population, tribal elders pointed to the creature as a sign, a warning that the lake's delicate equilibrium was under threat. Skeptics dismissed the connection as coincidence, but marine biologists noted that the timing aligned with the arrival of invasive northern pike, a predatory fish that decimated Iliamna's native species. Could Eli, whatever it is, be responding to these shifts in ways we don't yet understand? The most compelling evidence might lie in the lake itself. Iliamna is fed by glaciers and connected to the Pacific through a labyrinth of underground channels, some leading all the way to Bristol Bay. These submerged tunnels, barely explored, could theoretically serve as migratory routes for marine species. In 2017, a team from the University of Alaska dropped hydrophones into the lake's deepest trenches and recorded something unexpected: low-frequency groans similar to the vocalizations of Greenland sharks, a cold water relative of the sleeper shark. The sounds were faint, distorted by the lake's acoustics, but they were there, a chorus of deep, resonant pulses that stopped abruptly when the team's submersible lights flickered on. Then there's the matter of the scars. Commercial fishermen netting salmon near Iliamna's outflow rivers have hauled up fish with bizarre, crescent-shaped wounds, marks too large to be from otters or eagles and too precise to be random abrasions. One biologist who examined the injuries compared them to the bite patterns of a cookie-cutter shark, a small, parasitic species that latches onto larger prey. But cookie-cutters are tropical fish, never documented in Alaskan waters, unless, of course, something else, something native to Iliamna, has evolved a similar feeding strategy. Theories about Eli's true nature range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some cryptozoologists suggest it could be a relic population of white sturgeon, a prehistoric fish capable of growing over 20 feet, though no sturgeon have ever been documented in the lake. Others float the idea of a freshwater variant of the six-gill shark, a deep ocean predator known to venture into brackish estuaries. But the most tantalizing possibility is that eerie represents an entirely unknown species, a creature that somehow thrived in isolation, escaping scientific scrutiny while weaving itself into the fabric of local legend. What makes this case so captivating isn't just the mystery, it's the way it forces us to confront how little we truly know about Earth's last wild places. Iliamna isn't some remote, uncharted lagoon. It's a stone's throw from Alaska's busiest fishing hubs, its waters regularly traversed by planes and boats. And yet, something lurks there just beyond the edge of our understanding. Maybe it's a shark, maybe it's something older, or maybe, as the Dena'ina have believed all along, it's a reminder that some waters aren't meant to be fully known, only respected. The next time you cast a line into a quiet lake or skim a boat across glassy water, take a moment to peer into the depths, because in places like Iliamna, the line between myth and reality is as thin as the surface tension holding you afloat. July 2014 was supposed to be a quiet month along Maryland's Chesapeake Bay until shaky cell phone footage turned the internet upside down. A family boating near Calvert Cliffs captured what appeared to be a 15-foot crocodile gliding through the brackish water, its ridged back breaking the surface in jagged arcs before disappearing into the murk. The video spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views and sparking debates from marine biology forums to late-night talk shows. Here was the impossible, a prehistoric-looking predator in waters where the closest native reptile was a harmless 5-foot diamond-backed terrapin. Eyewitness descriptions only deepened the mystery. The creature moved differently than any known crocodilian or serpentine, with an eel-like undulation that left an unusually wide wake. One kayaker who claimed a close encounter near the Patuxent River swore it had too many teeth, its jaws lined with needle-like fangs in overlapping rows. Even more bizarre were the reports of erratic behavior. Unlike skittish alligators that flee human contact, this thing seemed curious, even deliberate. A crabber working the shallows near Solomon's Island reported it surfacing just 10 feet from his boat, its unblinking amber eyes tracking him for nearly a minute before sliding back under. Theories exploded faster than officials could debunk them. Some suggested an escaped pet, perhaps a Nile or Orinoco crocodile released by an overwhelmed collector. But experts pointed out that no private facility in the region housed specimens large enough to match the descriptions. Others floated the idea of a wayward American crocodile, a species occasionally spotted as far north as South Carolina, but never in the Chesapeake's chilly spring temperatures. The most tantalizing and terrifying explanation came from a local fisherman who'd spent decades on those waters. "That ain't no croc," he told reporters. "That's Chessie's mean cousin. He might have been onto something. The bay's ecology could theoretically support a rogue crocodilian, at least temporarily." Warmer summers and nutrient-rich runoff have led to longer growing seasons for invasive species like the northern snakehead, a predatory fish now thriving in the estuary. Could a wayward crocodile exploit this buffet? Possibly, but the Chesapeake's winter chill would be fatal to any tropical reptile, unless, of course, it wasn't tropical at all. Enter the cold-tolerant croc theory. Paleontologists note that crocodilians once inhabited much higher latitudes during warmer climatic periods. Fossil records show extinct species like Deinosuchus, a 30-foot monster that prowled North America 80 million years ago, could withstand seasonal temperature swings. While modern crocs lack these adaptations, some biologists speculate that throwback traits could emerge in isolated populations. A 2018 study even identified a population of American alligators in North Carolina surviving in water as cold as 40 degrees Fahrenheit, far beyond their supposed limit. But what if it wasn't a crocodile at all? Sonar scans conducted after the sightings detected unusual movement near the bay's deepest channels, signatures too large for sturgeon but lacking the telltale undulation of marine mammals. Some locals whispered about the Tahoe Terror, a mythical beast from indigenous Nanticoke lore described as a scale-covered wolf of the water. Others pointed to the bay's bizarre history of misidentified creatures, like the 1980s sea monster that turned out to be a sunken WW2 aircraft fuselage covered in barnacles. The most compelling evidence emerged by accident. In 2020, construction crews dredging near Kent Island unearthed a partial skull fragment with crocodilian features, but the bone's porous structure suggested adaptations for freshwater, not salt water. Radiocarbon dating placed it at just 300 years old, long after the region's last prehistoric crocs went extinct. The fragment vanished into private collector hands before proper analysis, leaving researchers with only blurry photos and more questions. Today, the Chesapeake Crocosaurus remains a cautionary tale about our assumptions. Whether an escaped exotic, a biological anomaly, or pure myth, its legacy endures because it forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about nature's adaptability. The bay has always been a place of transformation where freshwater meets salt, where marshes reclaim shorelines, where species evolve in isolation. Maybe, just maybe, it's also a place where old predators can find new hunting grounds. One thing's certain, when the sun sets over those brackish waters, casting long shadows across the shallows, even the skeptics paddle a little faster back to shore. Lake Norman's glassy surface hides more than just sunken towns and forgotten riverbeds. It's home to one of the South's most persistent aquatic mysteries. Locals call it Normie, a humped, serpentine creature that's been gliding through jet skiers' nightmares since the 1960s. The earliest reports came from construction workers flooding the Catawba River to create the lake in 1963. They swore something massive brushed against their equipment, its shadow stretching longer than their barges, but Normie's roots run deeper than the man-made reservoir. Cherokee elders whisper of Octina, a water cougar with a serpent's body and glowing scales, said to guard sacred springs now buried beneath the lake's depths. One of the most chilling encounters unfolded in July 1991, when a couple on a midnight jet ski ride near the Cowan's Ford Dam spotted three distinct humps breaking the water behind them. At first, they blamed waves until the shapes kept pace, matching their speed even as they swerved. The husband later described the thing's movement as mechanical, like a train underwater, its spine undulating in perfect rhythm before it dove, leaving a whirlpool strong enough to rock their craft. The story might have been written off as a drunken delusion, if not for the dozen other witnesses who'd reported similar sightings that summer, all describing the same eerie precision in its movements. What sets Normie apart from other lake cryptids is its ties to pre-flood geography. Before the Catawba was dammed, the area was a patchwork of waterfalls and natural springs the Cherokee considered portals to the spirit world. Divers exploring the lake's deepest trenches report unnatural rock formations, circles of boulders too symmetrical to be random, covered in algae-obscured carvings. In 2008, a team from Davidson College using side-scan sonar detected a massive, cave-like void near one of these sites, its entrance partially collapsed. The discovery reignited theories that Normie isn't just a creature, but a guardian displaced by the flooding, its territory now encompassing the entire 32-mile reservoir. Modern sightings read like scenes from a horror film. In 2017, a fisherman near the Magaya nuclear station filmed a dark, humped shape surfacing just feet from his boat, its wake sending his gear tumbling. The video, though shaky, clearly shows something alive. No log or wave moves with that deliberate, sinuous motion. Then there's the 2020 incident where a lakeside homeowner's security camera captured a series of unexplained ripples near their dock at 3 a.m. ripples that formed perfect concentric circles, as if something large had risen vertically beneath the surface before sinking straight down. Scientists offer tamer explanations, perhaps a wayward sturgeon or a misidentified school of carp. But Lake Norman's ecology complicates things. The water's warm, nutrient-rich conditions have led to freakishly large fish, including 80-pound catfish and 6-foot-long gar. Could an even bigger specimen be lurking? Maybe, but nothing explains the glow some witnesses describe, a bioluminescent shimmer along the creature's spine, matching Cherokee accounts of Actina's crystal scales. The most haunting theory connects Normie to the lake's darker history. Over 20 people have vanished in its waters since the 1970s, their bodies never recovered. Some blame strong undercurrents or boating accidents. Others point to the eerie timing. How many disappearances occur near the old river channels where Normie sightings cluster. Whether a displaced spirit, a mutant fish, or something science hasn't named, one thing's clear: Lake Norman keeps its secrets as closely as it guards its dead. And on still nights when the water turns to black glass, even the skeptics feel it, the weight of something watching from below. The Monongahela River winds through Pennsylvania's industrial heartland, its waters thick with coal barges and the echoes of steel mills, hardly the setting for a mermaid's song. Yet in the summer of 1873, a series of bewildering entries began appearing in riverboat logs near Pittsburgh. Crews reported eerie, melodic humming echoing across the water at dusk, a sound like a woman's voice filtered through a storm drain. Then came the sightings, pale, green-tressed figures lounging on sandbars or darting between the hulls of docked freighters, their lower halves obscured by the murky current. The descriptions were oddly specific: long, seaweed-like hair that shimmered even in moonlight, webbed fingers, and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. One captain's journal, now preserved in the Heinz History Center, recounts a near collision with a slender, laughing thing that slapped the water in warning before vanishing beneath his prow. At first, authorities blamed drunkenness or the stress of endless shifts in the soot-choked air. But when similar accounts cropped up from sober dockhands and even a Methodist preacher fishing near Braddock's Bluff, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette launched an investigation. Their conclusion: manatees. The theory hinged on a fluke of biology. Florida's manatees had been documented migrating up the Atlantic coast as far as Massachusetts during unusually warm summers. Could a few have strayed into the Monongahela via the Ohio River? Scientists noted that manatee vocalizations, when distorted by river acoustics, might resemble human-like singing, while their rounded backs and paddle-like tails could be misconstrued as humanoid from a distance. But the manatee explanation unraveled under scrutiny. No manatee carcasses or live specimens were ever recovered in the region, despite extensive searches. More damning were the details that didn't fit. Manatees lack hair altogether, let alone the flowing green locks described by witnesses. Then there was the behavior. Manatees are docile, slow-moving creatures. They don't laugh, slap the water in warning, or vanish with the unnerving speed logged by multiple observers. Even the timing felt off. The sightings clustered near old coal piers and industrial runoff zones, places where manatees or any sensible marine life would avoid due to toxicity. Digging deeper reveals a darker undercurrent to the legend. The Monongahela's riverbanks were once home to Shawnee villages, and their oral histories speak of awasasi, water spirits who lured the greedy to their doom. These beings weren't the benevolent mermaids of European lore. They were tricksters, their songs a test of character. Industrialists who mocked the stories often met with accidents, machinery failing at critical moments, barges mysteriously unmoored. Coincidence, perhaps, but it's telling that the 1870s sightings spiked during labor strikes, when tensions between workers and factory owners reached a boiling point. The most haunting account comes from a night watchman at the Jones and Laughlin Steelworks in 1879. He claimed a green-haired figure emerged from the river near the plant's waste pipes, its skin streaked with oily residue, and spoke a single sentence in broken English: "You poison us, we poison you." Within a week, 12 workers fell ill with unexplained rashes, their symptoms matching arsenic exposure from improperly disposed slag. The incident was buried in company records, but the watchman's testimony survived in his granddaughter's memoir, passed down as a cautionary tale. Today, the Monongahela mermaid is dismissed as industrial folklore, a product of sleep deprivation and polluted air. Yet something lingers in the way fishermen still avoid certain bends in the river after dark, or how salvage divers report feeling tugged by unseen currents near the old steel mill ruins. The river, after all, has a long memory, and maybe, just maybe, so do the things that once called it home. Because here's the unsettling truth: water doesn't forget. And neither do the stories of those who have listened too closely to its whispers. Lake Okanagan's legendary Ogopogo might be Canada's most famous cryptid, but its influence doesn't stop at the border. Just south in Washington state, the deep, frigid waters of Lake Osoyoos and the Similkameen River have their own eerie history of serpentine sightings, some so strikingly similar to Ogopogo's descriptions that locals swear the creature must migrate between the two lakes. One of the most bizarre chapters in this cross-border legend unfolded in August 1947, near the quiet farming town of Oroville. A group of fruit pickers stumbled upon a grotesque, 3-foot-long carcass washed up on the riverbank, a bloated, grayish thing with a horse-like head, tiny flippers, and a coiled tail. News spread like wildfire. Someone had found a baby Ogopogo. The Oroville carcass became an instant sensation. Crowds gathered to gawk at the bizarre specimen, while newspapers ran breathless headlines declaring the monster of the north had been caught. A local taxidermist even offered to preserve the creature, but before he could begin, a University of Washington zoologist named Dr. Leonard Schultz arrived to examine it. His verdict, a hoax but an ingenious one: the baby Ogopogo was actually a carefully altered basking shark carcass, its gills and fins removed to exaggerate its serpentine appearance. The perpetrator was never identified, but the stunt tapped into something deeper than mere trickery. For decades, Indigenous Sioux communities on both sides of the border had shared stories of Enhaayik, the lake's shape-shifting guardian. The hoaxer, whoever they were, had weaponized that mythology, blending cultural lore with just enough realism to fuel hysteria. Yet the Oroville incident didn't kill the legend, it amplified it. In the years that followed, Washingtonians reported full-sized Ogopogo-like creatures in Lake Osoyoos, often coinciding with peaks in Canadian sightings. 1962 saw a flurry of reports near the Zosel Dam, where witnesses described a 30-foot-long beast with a neck like a telephone pole gliding beneath fishing boats. In 1988, a family picnicking near Haynes Point watched in stunned silence as 3 distinct humps broke the water's surface, moving in perfect unison before vanishing. Even modern sonar scans have picked up anomalies in these waters, unexplained masses too large for sturgeon, too fast for logs. The connection between these lakes isn't just psychological, it's geological. The Okanagan Valley, stretching from British Columbia into Washington, was carved by the same glacial forces, leaving behind a chain of deep, interconnected basins. Some cryptozoologists speculate Ogopogo, or whatever it might be, could navigate this submerged highway via underground channels, surfacing where the geography allows. Others propose a simpler explanation: misidentified schools of massive white sturgeon, which can exceed 15 feet in length and are known to inhabit these waters. But sturgeon don't account for the vertical, swan-like necks described by so many witnesses, nor the eerie intelligence some claim to have observed. Perhaps the most unsettling detail comes from the Sioux people themselves. Their oral histories describe Enhaayik as a shapeshifter, equally capable of appearing as a serpent, a horned water panther, or even a humanoid figure. Modern sightings near Oroville occasionally echo this versatility. In 2005, a kayaker on the Similkameen reported something that defied all fish-based explanations: a hairless, dark-skinned humanoid clinging to a submerged rock ledge, its elongated fingers gripping the stone like claws before it slipped into the current. The witness, a retired marine biologist, insisted the thing had looked directly at him, and in that moment he understood why the Sealks never treated these waters lightly. Whether a shared species, a cultural archetype, or something more supernatural, the Ogopogo's Washington connections remind us that monsters don't respect borders. And in the quiet stretches where the Similkamene's current slows to a crawl, even skeptics pause because some legends are too persistent, too detailed, and too alive to dismiss. Lake George glitters like a sapphire in New York's Adirondack Mountains, but beneath its postcard-perfect surface, something stirs, something the locals call Georgie. Unlike other lake monsters that slink through deep waters unseen, Georgie has a peculiar habit. It surfaces before storms. The Abenaki and Mohawk tribes knew it long before settlers arrived, weaving stories of a horned serpent whose appearances signaled coming tempests. Fishermen still swear by the old rule: if you spot a ripple where no fish should be, head for shore. The weather's about to turn. One of the most chilling accounts dates back to 1982, when a NOAA research team studying the lake's microclimates encountered more than just shifting air currents. Anchored near Dome Island, they recorded a series of unexplained sonar pings, something massive moving vertically through the water column, ascending from the depths as thunderheads gathered on the horizon. The lead meteorologist later admitted, "We'd been tracking barometric drops, but that thing in the water, it knew before our instruments did." By nightfall, a squall capsized 3 boats farther up the lake, proving Georgie's warning right. What makes these stories so compelling isn't just the creature's alleged forecasting skills, it's the geology that could hide it. In 1987, a dive team mapping the lakebed uncovered a labyrinth of underwater caves near Bolton Landing, some large enough to swallow a school bus. Their lights flickered against smooth, curved walls too symmetrical to be natural erosion before strong currents forced them back. One diver, a former Navy SEAL, insisted something had been watching from the darker tunnels. "You ever feel like prey?" he told the Albany Times-Union. That's what those caves felt like. Local historians note eerie parallels between these modern encounters and 18th century fur trapper logs. French explorers wrote of La Bête Scintillante, a shimmering beast that coiled around sinking canoes during sudden squalls. Even Theodore Roosevelt, during his Adirondack expeditions, scribbled in his journal about Mohawk guides refusing to camp near the lake's southern coves, fearing the serpent storm summoning wrath. Scientists offer tamer explanations. Perhaps Georgie is a colossal eel, disturbed by pre-storm pressure changes. Lake George's depths harbor American eels that migrate to the Sargasso Sea, some growing over 6 feet long. But no eel explains the humped silhouettes photographed in 2004 by a tourist near Sabbath Day Point, or the 5-note whistle kayakers reported hearing before a freak hailstorm in 2019, a sound matched to nothing in freshwater biology. Perhaps the truth lies in the lake itself. Unlike most glacial basins, Lake George has no visible outlet, yet its water stays unnaturally clear. Hydrologists suspect underground rivers feed it, possibly connecting to Champlain's depths and whatever swims there. On calm days, when the mountain's reflections paint the surface like a mirror, old-timers warn not to stare too long, because in Lake George, the real danger isn't just what's beneath the water. It's what the water knows before you do. Lake Pend d'Oreille in northern Idaho holds more than just crystal blue waters and stunning mountain views. It's also the stage for one of the most intriguing military-linked cryptid stories in America. During World War II, the U.S. Navy chose this glacial lake as a top-secret submarine testing site, drawn by its extraordinary depth, over 1,100 feet in places, and eerily similar acoustics to the open ocean. But sailors stationed here didn't just train with man-made vessels. They reported something else sharing the water with them, something the sonar operators dubbed the Thing. The accounts from the 1940s read like classified briefings. Sonar technicians swore they tracked fast-moving objects the size of a school bus, descending to depths no submarine could reach. One declassified log describes an incident where a prototype sub's crew felt a sudden jolt, as if something massive had brushed against their hull, before their instruments registered a shadow streaking away at speeds clocking nearly 50 knots, twice what their technology could achieve. Officers dismissed it as equipment malfunctions or freshwater refraction, but the men who'd seen the readings knew better. Whatever was down there, it wasn't part of the Navy's fleet. Decades later, long after the military packed up its operations, civilian encounters began mirroring those wartime anomalies. In 1992, a group of fishermen trolling for kokanee salmon near the lake's deepest trench watched their fish finder light up with a gargantuan blip. Seconds later, their boat rocked violently as if something had passed beneath them at incredible speed. One of them, a retired naval engineer, recognized the pattern instantly. It matched the erratic, fast-mover signals he'd heard veterans whisper about. Then came the 2021 incident that blurred the line between folklore and forensic evidence. A research team from the University of Idaho was conducting a routine hydroacoustic survey when their equipment picked up a bizarre signature, a 40-foot-long object moving in precise, zigzag patterns near the lakebed. The thermal imaging showed something even stranger. The thing's body temperature registered several degrees warmer than the surrounding water, a trait unheard of in cold-blooded lake dwellers. The lead biologist later admitted, "I've studied everything from giant sturgeon to freshwater seals. Nothing in the literature explains what we saw that day." So what could lurk in Pend Oreille's icy depths? Some researchers point to the lake's unique geology. Formed by glaciers and fed by underground springs, it's a perfect preservation chamber for relict species. Think prehistoric fish that outlasted the Ice Age. Others speculate the military's presence might have stirred something up, whether a mutated strain of native fish or even an experimental vehicle lost to history. But the most compelling theory ties back to the Kootenai tribe's ancient stories. Their oral histories describe Entiaquam, a horned water serpent that could swim faster than thought, guarding the lake's deepest trenches. The strangest detail, modern sonar scans occasionally detect vast, tunnel-like structures near the lakebed, some stretching for miles, far too symmetrical to be natural formations. Divers who have ventured into these passages report strange currents that shift direction without warning, as if the lake itself is breathing. Maybe the thing wasn't just a glitch in the system. Maybe it was there long before the submarines arrived, and if the Navy's own technology couldn't catch it, what makes us think we ever will? The Ohio River doesn't just carve through the heartland, it hides something far stranger than catfish or barges. Along its muddy banks where the willows dip into the current, locals have whispered for decades about a creature that defies easy classification. They call it the grassman, a hulking, bipedal figure with shaggy, moss-flecked fur and an uncanny ability to vanish into the reeds. But what makes this Bigfoot variant unique isn't just its elusiveness, it's the way its sightings cluster near water, as if the river itself is part of its territory. One of the most compelling accounts comes from the summer of 1974, when a group of Kentucky fishermen anchored near Maysville reported a nightmare unfolding at dusk. Something massive emerged from the shallows, its fur matted with algae, moving with a gait that was neither fully human nor entirely animal. One of the men, a steelworker named Roy Mattingly, swore the creature paused waist-deep in the water, its amber eyes reflecting the dying light before letting out a guttural croak and slipping beneath the surface without a ripple. The detail that haunted him most, the way its fingers seemed webbed, splayed wide as it pushed through the current, a trait no known primate possesses. This encounter, and others like it, has fueled speculation that the grassman might be tied to the controversial aquatic ape hypothesis. Proposed by biologists in the 1960s, the theory suggests that some human ancestors may have gone through a semi-aquatic evolutionary phase, developing traits like subcutaneous fat, webbed digits, and even a streamlined posture for wading. While mainstream science dismisses the idea, cryptozoologists point to the grassman's reported behaviors: its affinity for riverbanks, its alleged ability to hold its breath for unnaturally long periods, even the slick, almost seal-like texture witnesses describe when glimpsing its fur up close. Could it be a relic population of something ancient, a missing link that never left the water? The Ohio River's geography adds weight to the mystery. Its sprawling tributaries and flooded caves create perfect hideouts for something that wants to stay hidden. In 1988, a pair of duck hunters near Cincinnati reported a series of eerie, dome-shaped nests woven from river grass along a sandbar, structures far too large for beavers or muskrats. When they returned with a wildlife biologist, the nests were gone, swept away by the current, but not before the biologist noted something unsettling: strands of hair tangled in the reeds, coarser than bare fur, with a faint briny smell, as if soaked in river water for years. Skeptics argue these sightings are misidentifications, black bears swimming awkwardly, or even fugitives hiding in the wilderness. But the sheer volume of reports spanning from West Virginia to Illinois suggests something more persistent. In 2017, a barge captain near Evansville captured thermal footage of a towering figure wading through a backwater slough, its heat signature inconsistent with any known animal. The video, though grainy, shows the thing diving smoothly, its upper body angled forward like a swimmer's, a posture neither bear nor man could sustain for long. What ties these accounts together isn't just the creature's appearance, it's the way the river seems to protect it. Old Shawnee stories speak of Pamola, a spirit that guarded waterways, punishing those who took more fish than they needed. Modern witnesses often describe a sudden hush falling over the river before the grassman appears, as if the current itself is holding its breath. Whether a genetic outlier, a cultural archetype, or something science hasn't named yet, one thing's certain: the Ohio keeps its secrets close. And somewhere in those muddy depths between the barges and the moonlight, the grassman watches, waiting for the next ripple to break the surface. Lake Michigan's choppy waters hold more than shipwrecks. They guard an ancient legend that refuses to stay buried. The Ojibwe people spoke of Miss Hypeshoe, the underwater panther, a creature of contradictions, part lynx, part serpent, with copper scales gleaming like coins and antlers like gnarled branches. This wasn't just a monster, it was a guardian spirit, a force of balance that could bless fishermen or drag the disrespectful into the depths. But what if these centuries-old descriptions weren't purely mythical? What if they were rooted in something tangible, something real that once prowled these waters? Take the antlers, for instance. Ojibwe petroglyphs depict Miss Hypeshoe with sprawling, jagged appendages, details that align eerily with the skulls of prehistoric cetaceans like Basilosaurus, an ancient whale with elongated vertebrae that could resemble antlers when fossilized. These 40-foot predators once dominated the very region that's now Lake Michigan, their remains occasionally unearthed in the Great Lakes sediment. Could ancestral encounters with these fossils have inspired the underwater panther's iconography? It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. Indigenous oral traditions often encode geological and paleontological truths, like the Sioux stories of thunder beasts later confirmed to describe dinosaur fossils. Then there are the scales. Witnesses both ancient and modern describe Miss Hypeshoe's hide as made of copper, reflecting the sunlight in blinding flashes. Lake Michigan's depths are littered with pure copper nuggets, a resource the Ojibwe mined for millennia. But there's another possibility: the armored plates of sturgeon, which can grow to 8 feet long and shimmer like metal when they breach. In 2017, a commercial fisher near Traverse City hauled up a sturgeon so large its thrashing capsized his dinghy. When the sun hit its back, he swore it looked like a knight in chainmail. But Miss Hypeshoe's most haunting trait is its alleged intelligence. Ojibwe stories warn it remembers faces, holding grudges for generations. Modern sailors echo this unnerving detail. In 2003, a research vessel near Sleeping Bear Dunes recorded sonar contact with something that didn't behave like any known animal. It circled their boat for hours, matching their speed, vanishing when they dropped cameras. The crew, all scientists, described the experience as being stalked. The lake itself offers clues. Michigan's underwater topography is a graveyard of glacial trenches and submerged caves, some deeper than the Empire State Building is tall. In these lightless canyons, who's to say what might still linger? Paleontologists recently confirmed that Greenland sharks, which can live 400 years, occasionally venture into the Great Lakes. If a cold-adapted relic like that exists, why not others? Perhaps Miss Hype Shoe isn't just a myth or a misidentified fossil, it's both. A cultural memory of ancient creatures woven into warnings that still ripple through Lake Michigan's mist. Because sometimes the oldest stories aren't just tales, they're maps, and the deeper you dive, the clearer the truth becomes. Some waters don't just hide monsters. They remember them. From the horse-headed serpent of Lake Champlain to the webbed hands of the Loveland frogmen, America's waterways hide a gallery of nightmares and wonders that defy explanation. Think about it, how many countries can boast a menagerie this bizarre? We've got armored river monsters that predate Columbus, spectral divers haunting flooded towns, even crocodilian invaders lurking where science swears they shouldn't be. Each creature tells us something deeper, not just about the mysteries of nature, but about the communities that birth these legends. Whether it's the Cherokee's Octina warning us to respect sacred waters, or the fishermen of Gloucester swearing their sea serpent was as real as the nets in their hands, these stories are more than campfire tales. They're cultural fingerprints pressed into the landscape like the wake of something unseen. And here's the thing, this list barely scratches the surface. For every champ or Bessie that makes headlines, there are a dozen local legends whispering through dockside bars and reservation longhouses. Maybe you've heard them, the three-eyed thing that surfaces near the old mill pond when the moon's full, or the flickering lights that dance over the bayou before a storm. That's where you come in. Drop your own hometown horror in the comments. The stranger, the better, because who knows, that tall tale your grandpa swore by might just be the next viral cryptid. And if you think America's monsters are wild, wait until we dive into the global deep end. Imagine Scottish kelpies dragging sailors into peat bogs, or the Philippines' vampiric sigbin stalking moonlit beaches. The planet's swimming with things that'll make Chessie look like a goldfish, but that's a story for another day, or maybe tonight when you're staring a little too long at that dark patch of water by the dock. After all, legends don't just live in lakes, they live in the way we look